You
Can
long?
harangue it? No, I've got it. Thank you.
Okay.
I can harangue it.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. September 21st, 2022, 6 p.m. I would like to bring our regular city council meeting to order. This meeting will be conducted in person and also with a virtual public participation. So all emails will continue to be accepted, but will not be read aloud during this meeting. I would like to start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to ask Zach to lead us for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the United States to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Zach. I would like to ask our city clerk, Ms. Rebecca Barr, for the roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Here.
Councilmember Agramonte. Here. Councilmember Felder,
Here.
Councilmember Lowe,
Here.
Mayor Dean.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Starting from the last city council meeting, September the 12th, until today, our city and council didn't have any closed section meeting. So no any information to share with the public. Next, I would like to approve tonight's agenda. If any changes,
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I would like to remove from the closed session calendar should I wait till the consent calendar?
Yeah.
I just wanted, I thought we did that
Oh,
differently.
you're removing something?
Removing it, yes.
okay.
Is that,
You said
I
closed
think I'm
session.
right on that part, right? 4.6, I'd like to remove 4.6.
All right, 4.6, if any other changes? Other than the city council member and also the staff, please. Looks like none. I would like to have a motion.
I'll move approval of the agenda as amended. Thank you, sir.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you so much. Let's go to the regular agenda. Agenda number 1, comments from the public. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on this agenda. It is recommended that you keep your comments 3 minutes or less. It's your turn. All right. How about the Zoom meeting?
The only individual on Zoom at this time is our planning director, and he's not raising his hand.
All right, yeah. Today is very, very light today. Also, it's good for a change. And the agenda number 2, meeting delegations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to dedicate this evening to Norman Berry, known as Norman Berry Bosshard, known as Papa Bear. Norman Berry Bosshard, born January 2nd, 1950, and passed away August 10th, 2022. He and his wife, Laura, ran off-Broadway cleaners for many, many, many years, decades, in fact. He was born on a military base. His wife, Laura Bosshard, daughter, he leaves behind. He is survived by his wife, Laura Bosshard, his daughter, Margaret Joy Bosshard King, and son-in-law, Stephen King. Okay, they both, I wanted to tell you romantically, they met at a doggy diner, which I think is pretty wonderful. I was a great fan of doggy diners, so that, and he was a volunteer fireman for Sonoma Valley, For several years, Barry also loved baseball. He was on Iraldi's fast pitch baseball team at Arnold Field and as well as his slow pitch team at SDC, the Bad News Bears. I just wanted to dedicate this evening to Mr. Bosshard. Norman Barry Bosshard passed away, as I said, August 10th, 2022.
Thank you, Councilmember Agrimonte.
You're welcome.
Any more dedications? Excellent, no? All right, let's move to the next agenda item. Agenda item number 3, presentations. Today, we don't have any item for presentation. Agenda number 4, consent calendar. All items listed on consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. We just removed in 4.6, if any items we needed to put out for further discussion. Right now, it's the time.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
I would like to pull for discussion and possible amendment 4.5.
4.5. Great. Okay. Any other items? Okay. I would like to open to the public. How about the Zoom meeting? No. All right. I will close public comment, and I need a motion.
I move approval of the consent calendar with the exception of 4.5.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda number 4.5, accept and direct the staff to transmit a letter to permit to Sonoma, County of the Sonoma, regarding recently released public reviewed draft specific plan, SP, and then a draft environment impact report, DEIR, for the Sonoma Development Center, SDC project. City Manager Stu Casey, could you please give us background or more introduction?
Is David available?
Recording in progress.
Mr. Mayor, I think this is just the letter that we asked them to draft
Okay.
at the previous meeting, and I
Yes.
just had a couple of.
Questions? Or-
I just like to add a couple words to it, and
Recording
I
stopped.
sent it over to our clerk. If people feel that they're comfortable with it, so I could, if you want, I could go
Yes,
through each
please.
section and tell you the words in there. So in paragraph 1, it says a robust, affordable housing plan for the project and a supportive non-housing development program. So we have both, something on-site and off-site. And in the next sentence, add the word office, so it should include institutional, research and development, office, and other creative uses. That's all in section 1. In section 2, the City of Sonoma supports economic generators in the project that provide a substantially better base, add the word substantially, better base for employment, and then can generate follow-on businesses locally and throughout the state. In other words, so it can be a model, so it's not just a one-off thing. In section 3, the sentence that begins, this should be a project approved in the specific plan by the Board of Supervisors as it achieves a, quote, higher level of historic preservation with a focus on adaptively reusing existing buildings to the maximum extent, new piece, while achieving the goals for co-locating housing and employment. And I think this is important because We don't, we do want housing there, but we want this to be part of our goals. And then the final thing is just to add a piece at the end of section 4 that asks the specific plan to call for other measures to reduce traffic to and from the SDC, like shuttles and developing Arnold Drive with bike lanes, walking paths, etc. So I don't think they're in any way that different from what, I think the letter is great. I want to commend the staff and the director for putting this together. I think it's really good, and I hope that if you're okay with just adding those little extra pieces, I can send this over. We can have it signed.
That's great. Thank you,
Yeah.
Council Member.
Thank you,
And
and
any more?
thank everybody for the work on this. I think it's been great.
Thank you. Any more comments or adding or correction? Or if no, okay. I would like to open to public. Maybe public has any more than comments. Anybody on the Zoom?
We do have 2 people, but
Great.
no one's raising their hand.
Wonderful.
Oh, wait. David, actually, our planning director wanted to speak.
Okay. Yeah, great. Hi, Dave. It's your turn. We are here.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me? This is David.
You should be able to speak. David, you should be able to speak.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me this evening?
Yeah, we turn it on.
Hi, Rebecca. This is David. Can you hear me?
Is that a chat? Is chat in there?
I did chat.
Oh, you chat. Sure. Yeah. We
You can always go back to the item if there's
Yeah.
a problem with it.
Anytime.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is a technical
Okay, so
issue.
I'll move approval of 4.5 as amended.
Any
Second?
roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Agarmonte,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you so much. Let's move to agenda number 5, public hearing. Tonight, we don't have any item for public hearing. Agenda number 6, regular calendar. 6.1, discussion, consideration, and possible action to ratify Mayor Dean's nomination to the Sonoma Valley Citizens Advisory Commission. City Clerk, Ms. Barr.
The item before you this evening, Mayor and Council, is the ratification of Mayor Ding's nomination for the Sonoma Valley Citizens Advisory Commission. The commission's a joint advisory agency that shares responsibility for local planning in the Sonoma Valley, and it has representation from both the county and the city. The city appoints 4 members, and currently we have a full seat that is vacant and a alternate seat that is vacant. We did do a recruitment, and we received multiple applications that were qualified. And per the commission policy that we'll be talking about later in the meeting, Mayor Ding and Vice Mayor Barnett held interviews with the candidates on Monday evening, and they discussed that, and Mayor Ding, I will turn it to you. That's the end of my staff report unless anybody has questions. And then it's just for you to name your nominations, and then for the council to ratify. That's the action for this evening, if they choose to do so.
Thank you so much. And it's kind of important things for the city and the council. From time to time, and interview, recruiting commissioners for each function of the department and the commissions. This time, we got a chance to appoint the 2 vacancy and positions for the Sonoma Valley Citizen Advisory Commissions. And we put the recruiting the notice on the newspaper, a website. We got a lot of the replies. I'm so grateful. Our community very active, want to contribute the time to serve our local committee. And we interview 5 of the people, and also both Vice Mayor Councilor Barnett and I interviewed each of them and compared the service length and the knowledge and the experience. We think it's the time to share everyone our decision. We nominated Tom Rouse as Commissioner for Sonoma Valley Citizen Advisory Commission. Donna Beckdeck as alternate commissioner for the Sonoma Valley Citizen Advisory Commission. That is our decision. Right now, I want to listen any comments from our city council members.
Just a question. Were we able to look at those applications?
The way that the policy works, they are only sent to the mayor, and then they're shared with the group. If in the past we have not shared those with the entire council, if you would like to see them, we can do that. We can, when we're going through the policy, we can add that in.
Yeah, because, we're voting on it and we haven't seen the applications. I mean, I trust you eminently to make good decisions. That's not the point. The point is that
I see.
usually we do get background information on everything, right? And these are, all we have is a list of names. So when we talk about the policy, if I forget, someone flag that, because we should look at that. Okay. Thank you.
That's great. Any more comments? Thank you so much, Councilmember Lowe. If not, okay, sure.
I just want to endorse your selection of Tom Rouse as the member of for that vacancy of the commission. Certainly, Tom has been active in the city. He's been a former city council member, a former mayor, and I appreciate him stepping forward and being willing to take on another volunteer task for the city. So I certainly support that.
Thank you, Councilmember Felder.
I agree with you, Bob. I think it's, we're very fortunate to have him step up.
Wonderful. Thank you. Actually, this commission, I was serving for this commission for 8 years. And 10 years ago, I was luckily interviewed by the former Mayor Ken Brown and the Vice Mayor Tom Rouse. But 10 years later, and then position changed. Yes, and I'm so grateful. Our community, all very, very active, as ready to serve our community. Right now, I want to open to the public. Any comments and the.
I am Tom Rouse, and I would like to thank you for the nomination, and we'll see how the council votes on this. I am very happy to continue to serve this community in this role. There was a moment there that I was going to run for city council, and my wife threatened to divorce me, and the company that I work for full-time threatened to fire me. So I thought this was the next best thing. So again, we'll go with whatever you approve or don't approve, but again, I appreciate the nomination. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Any more comments from this room? How about the Zoom meeting? All right. Let me now close on the public comments. Let me now bring to our city council for more comments or possible in a motion.
So I see that this says council discretion. So I guess because of what you have offered, Sandra, what do you?
No, I'm prepared to support the recommendation. I just felt, since we were talking about process going forward, and this is the first time I've had the experience of this before, that, it would be, would it be nice to just be able to say, oh, I've read your application. I'm so excited about all the things you've done. Of course, I know Tom's been on the council and so forth, but, that's all. Something going forward, but I'm prepared to support it. In fact, I'll make a motion to that effect.
Thank you.
And I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Mayor Ding.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda number 6.2, discussion, consideration, and a possible action to provide the direction to the staff to continue the Sonoma Alfresco program to the April 1st, 2023, as previously adopted, or discontinue the program on an earlier date, and or commence the process to establish a Sonoma Plaza master plan. Interim the city manager, Sue Casey, could you please give us some background?
Mayor Ding and City Council members, on June 1st, 2022, the City Council discussed the future of the City of Sonoma's Alfresco program and voted to extend the program to April 1st, 2023, directed staff to develop design guidelines for a revised Sonoma Alfresco program version 2.0. Any businesses wishing to participate in the revised Alfresco program would have to comply with the newly adopted design standards by April 1st, 2023, unless the date was otherwise modified by the City Council during the adoption of the program. Council also voted to terminate the First Street East road closure on October 31st, 2022, but would allow businesses until, until November 30th to remove all improvements. So there are currently 12 parklets remaining. Since June, staff has been working with restaurants who are participating in the current Alfresco program to address aesthetic cleanup issues, as well as zoning, code requirements, and any issues with ADA and traffic safety. On August 17th, 2022, City Council again discussed various options regarding the Alfresco program. This included possible direction on separate contracts with M Group and Page and Turnbull for revised parklet design standards. At the August 17th meeting, a motion was made to discontinue the current Alfresco program on October 31st, 2022. After discussion and feedback from the attorney, the item was continued to September 12th to allow the business community the opportunity to participate in the discussion and provide additional input. On September 12th, the City Council continued this item to tonight's meeting. So a large percentage of the city's sales tax revenue is supplied by city's restaurants, with a significant amount coming from the restaurants surrounding the plaza. However, it is really unknown at this time how much revenue is coming from the outdoor dining portion of restaurants with parklets. For fiscal year 22-23, sales tax revenue is projected to exceed pre-pandemic levels. Nonetheless, the economic losses suffered by restaurants during the forced shutdowns due to the COVID-19 pandemic were significant, and city restaurants may not yet have recovered from this financial impact. Staff is recommending that the City Council receive public comment and then provide direction to staff to either continue the Sonoma Alfresco program to April 1st, 2023, as was previously adopted, or discontinue the program on an earlier date. In addition, staff is recommending the council provide direction to possibly begin the process to establish a Sonoma Plaza master plan. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sue. Right now, it's time for our questions. First of all, I'd like to appreciate both our two council members, Vice Mayor Council Barnett and Council Member Robert Felder. They spend a lot of the time and the energy prepare different options for us. Appreciate it. If not, I would like to open to the public. And before that, also, I want to say thank you to our staff and also our community, especially restaurant owners. You got a lot of information, great suggestions, making today's options happen. Thank you.
Cody Binkley, B&B Whiskey Bar. Like last time when I went up here, most people do not understand how much Mr. Felder stated last time. It said it served its purpose. Didn't serve its purpose. Like, I have to be honest. We are hurting. Our community is hurting. We consistently want to give back to our community. I mean, my parents before me, we just want to give back. There's no way that it served its purpose. I understand it's not Daly City. I understand this is Sonoma. But in all reality, we're still hurting really bad to try to make it apparent that we want to make sure we are here. You know, that building set, my restaurant set vacant for 13 years. And I just want to make sure that we're doing the best we can for our community. I'm just super sad to see that we will be the only community in Sonoma County that does not have the parklets. The only. I mean, I've reached out to Marin, San Rafael. I talked to every single mayor all the way through it. I did my research. I've been working really hard. Windsor, San Rafael, Brunet Park, Santa Rosa, Healdsburg, we will be the only people that do not have a parklet system. I don't mind paying for it, but at the same time, I do not have an outdoor space. So therefore, we just need to come up with some type of concept in a sense to make sure we're relevant in a sense to provide our people with a reality. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Last one is we cannot have any more fire. I brought my best friend in who's an electrician. If we have to go to electric heaters, how would we be able to do that in a sense?
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Mark Bodenhammer, speaking on behalf of the Sonoma Valley Chamber of Commerce. I too would like to thank our ad hoc committee, Kelso and Bob. You guys both did a lot of work on this, and I really appreciate that. I also want to publicly recognize, Vice Mayor Barnett and Councilmember Felder. I want to also publicly recognize Vice Mayor Barnett and Councilmember Agramonte for your actions at the August meeting when we were discussing this item. I know you two were, well, I don't know 100% where you were at, but I know where you were at with the vote for getting rid of parklets, and I think it says a lot about you guys that you decided to wait and give the business community a chance to participate in this, so thank you for that. With regard to the item tonight, again, we don't have a policy on this from the Chamber's perspective because we have members on both sides. But we have participated in the staff work on this, and I just want to say that I think we can all agree that the process has not been ideal. You mentioned at the last meeting that this has seemed or felt like one of the most complicated issues that we've had to deal with, and there are some complications. But I think that there's a lot of room for improvement that we could make if you guys do decide to do this. As Cody stated, every other community in Sonoma County has either adopted or is in the process of adopting new standards, and we can frankly take their standards, erase the name of their city, and write in Sonoma, and we'd be 98% of the way there. If we do choose to do that, though, we do need to reorganize ourselves and take a step back. I think that we've kind of stopped and started and tried to do some little things and not focused on the big picture, and really the process just, there's been a lot of room for improvement. The changing of the dates, though, it's really difficult for businesses. We just voted in June to extend them until April of 2023, and so revising that on the fly is difficult. And we just look forward to working with you. Either way, whatever you decide, we'll be here to support our businesses. We'll be here to support you guys on council, whether it's this council or if you put it off and have the next council that's going to be seated in a couple months handle this, we'll be there to support the process. So thank you all again.
Thank you, Mark.
Good evening. My name is Norma Fogelberg. I'm new to Sonoma. I come from a family of doctors, some infectious disease doctors as well. And I have to tell you, we often, almost always select our restaurants based on outdoor dining right now. And for the foreseeable future, at least the next year. So from my perspective, I'd like to see the parklets remain. I'm also an architect, and I think much can be done to make them either safer, more appealing, and to satisfy both sides. And I'd like to see us do that. And I'd like to throw my support to the businesses that use them, as well as the public who would like them to stay. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
She kind of took up where I was going to go, but I have lots of friends.
Excuse me,
Earl
what's your
Gordon? Earl
name?
Gordon.
Oh.
Yes. Anyways, I've got lots of friends who still won't ride buses, won't go inside restaurants. We went over to the golf tournament to watch One Republic, so they were willing to go because it was outdoors. But when they had to ride the bus, masks on, everything, there's plenty of people who don't want to be indoors still, and we need to have the availability so that the restaurants do have the outdoor dining. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments? Anybody want to approach to the podium? Please.
Again, Tom Rouse, 135 Malay. I did not come here with the intention of speaking on this item, but I have an opinion, so I will let the opinion. I agree with the last speaker that there are many people who still, to this day, do not feel comfortable walking indoors with others without a mask, etc. So I look at that. I've never been a fan of the design or the lack of design of these parklets. I think that we certainly, it happened on the fly. I get why it didn't, there was no true consistency to what's out there. So I believe we should continue with the parklets at least through the date that was talked about, April, if you will, 2023. But I am a firm believer that we need to really take a look at what it is that we want those parklets to look like. We've got time now, so if you extend it again, you extend it again. But at least this way, you have public input, you have professional input. There is some consistency to the look and feel of these parklets. And I can't speak to Windsor, and I can't speak to Rohnert Park. I can speak to Park City, Utah, for example. They've got a very consistent look and feel to their to their parklets because they put the time and effort into doing that. So do what you will do, and it's up to you to make that decision. But I think extending until April is fine, but I am a firm believer that we as a community are not doing ourselves any favors with the look and feel of those parklets. We are a historic town. We've got the Golden Goose is the plaza, if you will, and we need to make it feel like Sonoma, not like it looks today, because it doesn't look very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Tom.
Good evening, councilmen and women. My name's Ron Wellender. I'm at 1149 Neal Court, and I think that the concept of fresco dining is really important and something that would be very appropriate. I think it dovetails well into the next item, or at least the concept of ultimately developing a master plan for the plaza. I think if we're going to continue with outdoor dining, it needs to look intended and purposeful and part of the overall historic plaza. I would be supportive of the idea of having Public Works clarify exactly how much of the 12-foot wide sidewalk space could be used for outdoor tables on the sidewalk, not in parklets that are out on the asphalt. Because I really think we can have a node, or we can speak to having some outdoor dining from October 31st on, but I do not support the idea of just continuing to kick the can down the road. But I do want to stress that I think we have a great opportunity to really improve the downtown plaza. We have an opportunity to really create thoughtful, well-designed al fresco dining, but it isn't, it's something that just is going to take some time, some thought, and some effort. But I really do think that we could provide some outdoor seating on the 12-foot wide sidewalk, still meet the ADA requirements. So for those people that still feel uncomfortable eating inside, that there would be an opportunity for a few tables like the Bistro and like a number of the current restaurants do have. So I think that, in my opinion, my preference would be to go ahead and pull back the parklets, provide dining on the sidewalks as much as possible, and then at some point when we do have a master plan, fold in as far as part of the program a very serious and thoughtful evolution of some outdoor fresco dining. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Any more? Oh, no.
Earl Gordon,
Please.
okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's look at it in a Zoom.
We have, I'm going to try, Zoom's being weird today, so we're going to try with Claire Salat.
All right, Claire. Hi, Claire. It's your turn.
Hi there, Claire Solat. I live in Sonoma, and I am speaking today both about the procedural way in which this issue is being handled, as well as the economic impact. First, to the procedural issue, the coupling of the alfresco dining with the master plan as one single item doesn't make a lot of sense. I see that the master plan is also being considered as a separate agenda item, and I would urge folks to proceed in that manner, because coupling these two together right now complicates the decision-making and the dialogue. Second, as to this issue about doing an about face at this point, having had council thoroughly vet, hear, discuss, and vote on this now, creates an undue hardship to the restaurant owners in our town. They have reasonably relied on the representations made in the June meeting. They have gone ahead when it comes to hiring staff. They have taken bookings for holiday gatherings. They have, in some cases, even made orders for extra product. As we heard in the August meeting, The process of disassembling a lot of these parklets will take a considerable amount of time. And if these restaurants are required to violate the contracts that they have signed with the providers that have helped them create their parklets, that will create unjust harm to them that the city will be responsible for. There is no justification at this point to shutter this program prematurely. And instead of wasting time dialoguing about that, we should be using this time, as many other people have said, to do the work on a master plan so that we can design a permanent parklet option as part of the master plan for the plaza. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claire. Any more comments? Okay. All right. Let me close on the public comments. We come back to our council member. We have the more discussion and then try to make some decision.
I think I'd like to start.
All right.
Thank you so much. You know, in the beginning, when the COVID pandemic happened, I was 100% supportive of doing this because I thought it was very important. But what I have found is the term al fresco is used pretty lightly. I don't think it compares to anything that is really, truly al fresco, and hopefully that comes with a master plan. So I agree with, I think a statement was, I feel sorry for restaurants. Yeah, I do. But I also feel sorry for residents that will tell me can't go into I can't come downtown. I can't find a parking place. I don't have anywhere to go. It's just, I don't like it. So the other thing, I feel sorry for retail stores. In the beginning, I was told that everything was safe. I investigated the K-rails. Now I understand what they're called. Mr. Berger was not on staff then, but I had to investigate those K-rails. They were just put out there with water for somebody to hit, slam into the diners. They're supposed to be locked. Here I am, a nobody, telling them you need a lock. All I did was go to Google to find out they needed to be locked. That's one of the things. I do understand that a lot of people will not eat inside. There are things that I'm very cautious about, but we have a lot of places who have parklets and outdoor dining in the back. And there are places who have outdoor dining without parklets. And I think some of those restaurants have actually closed their outdoor dining. I was concerned that a very serious accident happened in one of those parklets. Person ended up with a concussion. Something fell from a structure when somebody hit it. Ended up in the hospital, 10 stitches and a concussion. That was never reported to this council. Nobody reported it. So now part of the process is that if there's an accident on those parklets, it has to be reported. That's really something that, I always say my job's easy. I just serve the people. The other thing, I guess, that's an issue for me is that, as someone mentioned, they're not the most attractive things. Some people, have really taken freedom with putting these things up, and I don't know. So the other thing, what really is very close to me, my husband was walking this morning, and he said a person in a wheelchair had to go around the Sausage Emporium because there are chairs and tables out in front. I don't understand what's happened to our ADA rules here. I have no idea. I'm concerned about that. The person had to go out down the corner out into the street to get around them. So I know that's something that's been discussed, but I guess there's nothing going on. Nobody checks that out. I'm really have a problem with that. As I said, I was 100% supportive of this, but it's gone on for me. And I think I heard, and I'm sorry if I address you improperly, but Ms. Folgerberg, I wanted to say, yes, there are a lot of people do not want to go inside to restaurants. There are plenty of restaurants that serve outside, in the back. many of them, beautiful restaurants. So that doesn't stand with me. So I am not going to move one more inch on the approval of these. I am totally supportive of a master plan for the plaza, for this. I think, Vice Mayor, I think that was a wonderful idea. I probably will be dead by the time it's finished because we don't have a good way of getting things done in this city. And, that's how I feel. I thought I'd get this stuff out of the way before everybody has their own opinions. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, but thank you. I just have a quick question for the city attorney. A member of the public discussed undue burden, reliance issues. Those are legal terms and concepts. The encroachment permit for the parklets expired October 31st, and when we gave direction for the future on June 1st, did that change the encroachment permit? And in your view, are there any legal issues with ending the parklets at a different date tonight in response to the allegations of undue burden and reliance?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any change to the encroachment permits. Does staff have any information on that? So the encroachment permits still expire on October 31st? It would have to be renewed to April?
I believe the original EPs were never modified.
Mike, please, microphone.
But the original encroachment permits
Can you go to the podium?
have not been modified.
Mr. Berger,
He's saying
could you
the
come
original
to the podium
encroachment
using a
permits
microphone?
haven't been modified? I mean, we need to look at the encroachment permit. So if it says October 31st, then it's October 31st. There obviously could be some reliance issues if they, invested money into additional structures in the expectation based on the meeting in June that they're going to have at least through April. My position would be that they wouldn't be able to file a valid claim related to those damages because they shouldn't rely on anything other than their permit.
Okay.
And then the only other issue that I was thinking about regarding this that could arise, and I don't hear it, is if we need to treat similarly situated businesses the same. So we can't, if you pick and choose which parklets to end and which not to, and we don't have a rational basis for that, then that could be a legal issue. But I don't hear that as a point of discussion.
Are you saying that because we've already decided to end the Maya and Pangloss parklets on First Street East, that we would have an issue treating them differently than the others?
Those are different, right? Because that involves the closure of an entire street. So that is a difference, and there's a rational basis for making that distinction.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
To answer the question about the original encroachment permits, which I have copies of for all the different parklets, expired on October 13th, 2021. The EPs were never rewritten, but my understanding is they were modified and extended.
Yeah, no, at some point they were extended to October 31st, 2022.
Yeah, the original encroachment
at a meeting,
permits
yeah.
have been unchanged with the date 10/31/21.
So does that still, your view that we can still, are you saying we can basically decide anything we want tonight, or are there any legal issues to consider?
There are always legal issues to
Well, I
consider.
know, but I mean, what are, what I'm saying?
I don't know. I would have to know whether or not the extension has a date certain on it in order to determine whether or not ending it earlier would cause an issue. It could potentially cause an issue if the council were to direct staff to end the encroachment permits earlier than the extension allows for. And I don't. It sounds like we don't necessarily have the fact.
But since we've never changed the encroachment permit, does that, I mean, when you're saying earlier, like which extension are you talking about?
Sue, could you please,
So the information is that the extensions were based on the action by the council. So if that's the case, then there probably is some risk if the encroachment permit has been extended through April 2022 based on the vote by a majority of this body in June. Then to decrease that could potentially create some liability for costs incurred in reliance upon a April 1st deadline.
Councilmember Felder.
This may take a while. First of all, it's apparent that what seems to have stayed in everybody's mind is some extension to April 1st, 2023. But what seems to have also been overlooked or forgotten or ignored is that when the City Council took a vote on June 1st, 2022, and approved certain things in that vote, there were conditions placed on that vote as to what would happen and when they would happen. And I want to go through those tonight because that seems to have been lost in all of the discussion. So I am quoting from a memo written by Wayne Wyrick, dated June 23rd, 2022, when he was the acting city manager because the interim city manager was on vacation in Europe. And this is what he has to say, that on June 1st, 2022, the City Council voted to extend the Al Fresco program as follows. Number one, all businesses currently utilizing parklet or sidewalk extensions may continue to do so until October 31st, 2022. Number two, in the meantime, city staff will be inspecting all businesses currently utilizing parklets or sidewalk extensions and identifying those installations that do not comply with interim uniform parklet standards. Number three, following the inspection of the parklets or sidewalk extensions, city staff will reach out to each of the businesses currently utilizing parklets or sidewalk extensions and provide an individualized, detailed, and specific list of items that must be mitigated pursuant to the interim uniform parklet standards. Number four, businesses that comply with the individualized, detailed, and specific list of items that must be mitigated pursuant to the uniform parklet standards by October 31st will be allowed to continue the use of their parklets or sidewalk extensions until April 1st, 2023. That's the only mention of that date. Number five, businesses that do not comply with the detailed and specific list of items that must be mitigated pursuant to the interim uniform parklet standards by October 31st, 2022 will be required to discontinue use of the parklet or sidewalk extension by October 31st, 2022 and have them removed not later than November 18th, 2022. In my view, the staff and the people that have the parklets have not complied with the individualized, detailed, and specific list of items that must be mitigated. There have been some changes, but they have not been enforced throughout the entire parklet program. But let me go on and point out a number of items that appear on the list of uniform parklet standards to which they must concur. Number one, minimum 5 feet of unobstructed public sidewalk adjacent to the outdoor dining. Number two, umbrellas shall have 80 inches of vertical clearance. under the lowest point. Number 3, freestanding umbrellas shall have umbrella stands designed to support freestanding umbrellas without extra weight ballasts, masonry blocks, sandbags, etc. Ballast must be part of the umbrella base design. Pedestrian ramps shall be in good, stable condition. Removal of water barricades in conjunction with the installation of 6-inch hard rubber curbs combined with white channelizers shall be scheduled. In terms of guards, guards are the enclosure walls or fencing designed to keep persons from stepping directly out onto the street or parking area from a parklet or sidewalk extension. They have to be between 36 and 42 inches tall on 3 sides and shall have walls sufficient to prevent a person or child from exiting the parklet. They shall be constructed of wood and or metal for corrugated and hog wire and shall not have openings larger than 4 inches. Other materials may be approved on a case-by-case basis. Guards shall be maintained in a stable and sturdy, supported condition without horizontal movement or deflection of more than an inch when a lateral force of 15 pounds is applied. Items under the fire code. Gas or propane heaters are prohibited within parklets or on the public sidewalk. Electric heaters are allowed when the heaters are listed and labeled for outdoor use and the location and installation complies with the fire code. Tents are prohibited within 20 feet of parking spaces and or the travel way per the fire code. Aesthetics. Tent sidewalls, sunshades, and sunscreens shall be removed. Busing stations are to be removed from the parklets. Trash cans are to be removed from the parklets. Furniture designed for outdoor use and in good, like new condition must be used. Indoor furniture is prohibited. I'm looking for one other. I can't find it, but there was also something about any parklet that encroaches in the 12-foot travel lane had to be removed. So in my view, this was not an automatic extension to April 1st of 2023. There were significant and well-defined modifications that had to take place to these parklets. And for the most part, they have not been accomplished, and I don't know which is at fault. Is it the staff, or is it the restaurant, or is it both? Or has it just been allowed to slip under the rug while we move on and ignore them? In my way of thinking, unless these items that were voted on and conditioned in the June 1st council meeting are taken care of by October 31st, these parklets have to be removed.
Thank you, Councilman Felder.
I just wanted to follow up with staff. Do you have any thing to say about the individualized mitigation measures and like what staff has been doing to address what we asked on June 1st that Councilman Felder just discussed?
So those guidelines were actually developed with the ad hoc committee. We did develop that letter, and actually it went out prior to the June 1st meeting. We have attempted to bring it to council because there was the council said that we did not approve all those guidelines, and there was quite a backlash from the newspapers and the restaurant owners because they said that, you know, many of them, you know, they felt like it was too much, that they wouldn't, especially if they didn't know if the program was going to continue. So we have worked with some of the restaurants but there's been first of all,
Didn't that backlash happen before the June 1st
it
meeting?
did.
Yeah.
It did.
So then on June 1st, we decided this is the path forward.
Right, but we did not bring all those items forward, and we had, there was a mention that those items had not been approved. We did, by the council, we took off, and then we brought them back to the last meeting. The council did not want to discuss those items, so, and then
Oh,
it
that
was also.
metric? That
Right, the
matrix
metric,
thing?
and then there was also the vote, or the motion made that they would be discontinued on October 31st. So we've, the restaurants, we weren't going to push on the restaurants to make any changes until they know that, that there's either going to be continued until April 1st, and that we would be doing design guidelines for them, or not, so.
I have a memo from the acting city manager that says these were the things that he understood that took place on that meeting on June 1st and what was conditioned for that approval. For us to now say that, well, we're going to look at maybe we want to change things, or we'll get around to the rest of the restaurants in August or September or next April, is not what Wayne Rarick put in his memo. And if that is the action that was taken by the acting city manager at that time, I think we should follow it. We can't keep changing our mind on things that we would like to see or we would hope to take care of at some future date. This is gotten totally out of hand, and that's the only reason that I am so against continuing the parklets, because we had I think a plan from the ad hoc committee where we could move ahead with the parklets and clean them up and make them look more attractive and make them in character with the historic downtown Sonoma. And everything that we have tried to put forward in terms of aesthetics and improvements has been pushed aside and just delayed, and that's unacceptable.
Thank you. Any
Yeah, I have some
Councilmember Lowe,
comments.
please.
Thank you. Before I start my comments regarding the parklets, I just want to mention that the news today reported that the CDC guidelines have been lifted in every county except for Sonoma and Marin. So we're still under those guidelines, as was brought up by several people. I don't disagree that there's been a lot of turmoil on this issue and that it has been a bumpy road. My recollection of the June 1st meeting is somewhat different than my colleague's, Mr. Felder. However, my overarching concern is that we did take a vote on June 1st. The staff is constantly working to assist the businesses to, develop an appropriate parklet. But in the meantime, these guys don't know. They've already invested money and resources, and there are staff that are hired, and we can't keep yanking their chains. We just can't. We need to have the standards put in place. I'd love to see what Park City is doing, Mr. Rouse. That sounds nice. I've been looking at all the different cities to see what they've come up with. I've talked to my colleagues on city councils in other cities, and they have developed good standards, and they seem to be working. I went to the League of Cities conference. In a room, there must have been 200 city council members there, and the entire focus of the workshop was on parklets. And they asked everybody, who's having trouble with parklets? Everyone raises their hand. Who's gonna get rid of the parklets? No hands go up. It's just, it was unbelievable. Everybody, so we're struggling because the pandemic created something that we're trying to, fix the airplane in the air. And it's difficult. But once people are used to something, like they got used to Zoom, and they don't want to come to meetings anymore, they want to be on Zoom, and we made that, and people they're accustomed to being outside and they're comfortable with it. Regardless of how we go forward after the date that I believe we've voted on, which was April 1st, and I believe that was our vote, and I don't intend to change it. And we have a master plan. I think we should do the things that have been brought up by Mr. Felder and various people in the audience who've brought it forward. I think we need to charge because it is our space, and there are cities that have worked out how much that is, and then give them, this is what they have to look like, this is how much it's going to cost, these are all the rules, and if they decide to go forward, they do, and they have to follow them. But in the meantime, we've been going back and forth on this, and I believe we voted on June 1st, and we should allow this to continue while we develop the actual hard facts of the requirements and how much it's going to cost, and then we vote on that, and then they decide whether they want to go forward or not. So I will, if there's a vote to change this date, I will vote against it. I believe I don't like to keep going back and forth on things we voted on. I think that that's unfair to the public, and it's a dereliction of our duty as city council members. We vote on something, we vote on it. And we voted on June 1st, and I think we should stick to that. And in the meantime, we should develop all of the things that everybody's mentioned, because that's right. But we can't keep yanking up the chain of these restaurants. There's an article in the Chronicle today about half the restaurant employees lost work during the pandemic. We are a city that relies on the hospitality in the restaurant industry. The people that come here for wine, they come here for food, and then they go shopping, and then they go to the parks, and then they learn about the history. But it is the big draw, and these folks have been, really working hard to keep it going under these horrible conditions. Not to mention the sicknesses that people have had and so forth. So I commend them for all the work that they're doing. I commend all the businesses for all the work that they've been doing to keep their employees employed, to keep everybody safe and healthy, and for bringing in people to the city and keeping the city afloat, because we're as reliant on them as they are tonight on us. And they have my wholehearted support going forward until we have something absolutely set in stone that we can present to them where they can go yay or nay. So that's where I am with the parklets.
That is right.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Thank you. So, as Mayor Ding said at the beginning, I do serve on the ad hoc parklet committee along with Councilman Felder, and I've learned more about parklets throughout this process than I've ever wanted to know. I went into this process very excited because I really like alfresco dining and the idea of a vibrant outdoor dining scene on the plaza, and was really looking for a way to preserve these. And we learned a lot of information through the process. Obviously, at one point, we discussed through members of our ad hoc committee, like constructing temporary sidewalk extensions, like they did at La Haye instead of parklets, because my primary concern was trying to balance the vibrant outdoor dining that I think we all like and would like more of on the plaza with, in my view, an aesthetic disaster. And we looked in committee and then at some time council, and we invited different architects and landscape architects and different people to our ad hoc committee, and we really looked for a way to do that. And at the end of the day, we realized that this is ultimately a construction project of little buildings on the plaza. And with fire code issues and safety issues and a lot of things that we learned throughout the process that we didn't realize. We also, I understand many communities still have parklets, many communities in Sonoma County still have parklets, but I do want to point out that this is a national landmark. This is a historic monument. This isn't, downtown Santa Rosa or San Rafael. This is the Sonoma Plaza. And in my view, maybe not everyone agrees, but we have to sort of treat it differently. So in my view, on June 1st, we did make a decision to extend the parklet program until April 1st, as long as a lot of different things happened, including what Councilman Felder just went through. And we've also learned more information. For example, to put together a design guidelines and architectural plans, and we were going to consult with someone to do that, and then also have a historic consultant involved to make sure these little buildings on the plaza were going to be historically appropriate and pass CEQA, and there were CEQA issues and everything. This was getting to $40,000 to $50,000 from the city would spend. And then we spoke with architects and others in the community, and we realized that any guidelines that came out of this, because again we're talking about a national landmark, these parklets, we would expect restaurant owners to probably invest $25,000 into these parklets, if not more. We don't have the exact figures, but that was sort of the ballpark. And then we also expected our business owners and restaurants on the plaza to lease the parklet space going forward from the city at a rate that could be $10,000 to $15,000 a year. And so with all of that new information since June 1st, that started to get me thinking a little differently about this. And I'm beginning to think maybe we should put all of our energies and funds into a master plan that would expand our sidewalks and really have a great European-style outdoor dining without new little buildings on the plaza. And so that's sort of where I'm at right now. I like the idea of having the city facilitate and being flexible with adding as many tables as is legally possible with ADA and safety issues on our existing sidewalks, even if they extend, for example, past the restaurants. Like, for example, Plaza Bistro, right to the south of it, has there's a real estate office with no frontage if they want to continue tables down the sidewalk. And as long as that's okay, and I'm sure staff would have to figure out how to do that, I would be more than happy to pack, to the extent legally possible, tables on our existing sidewalks. But again, this experience, at least for me, took a turn on June 1st, because right before June 1st, the ad hoc committee, we sent out a letter, and the city sent out a letter to our restaurants. And again, the goal at that time was to keep them going, but we need to make some aesthetic improvements. And instead, we got tremendous pushback on a letter that perhaps could have been delivered. Actually, I don't know exactly how it could have been delivered, but every piece of information in the letter was accurate. For example, there are state standards when it comes to tents. There are fire safety standards that we look the other way. I mean, these parklets were not compliant with anything, and all we were asking some of our restaurants to do was come into compliance with safety standards and also really improve the aesthetics. Really improve the aesthetics. And instead, we got a lot of pushback, and two parklets that, in my view, were pretty nice parklets, EDK and Girl on the Fig, just ripped theirs out and then trashed this city council and our city in the media. And I don't understand why. Because all this city has ever tried to do from day one since this pandemic started was help our restaurants on the plaza. And we bent over backwards to allow this parklet program. And I know Director Wyrick created a parklet standard that cities around Sonoma County copied. We were sort of the leader in parklets. And, I have to admit, I was surprised by that reaction because, again, it was all accurate, and we were just looking for a way to balance safety and aesthetics with outdoor dining. And since that point, obviously, we made our point on aesthetics. We pulled back on some of the requirements from then. But in my view, I haven't seen any improvements on aesthetics on parklets throughout the plaza since then. When, in my view, everyone knew that that was sort of the main issue, and there hasn't been any improvements. And so at this point, and in addition to the stuff that we decided on June 1st, not only have I discovered how expensive this will be for the city, but also for all of our restaurants. But a lot of the individualized, and I understand why but at this point, it's hard for me, I guess, to trust this process moving forward. And I think maybe it's time to, when it comes to changing votes and everything, like in my view, we set a date and a goal, and that came with a lot of things that has not occurred. And I have to admit, and I only have a few meetings left on the city council, and so if I'm going to find an opportunity to bring up Broadway, I will. This city council voted in 2020 to not restripe Broadway, and we changed our mind then. This is just part of the democratic process. In my view, new information has come to light, and at this point, I don't think this is the right decision for Sonoma. And as President Biden said this weekend, the pandemic's over. And so these were oriented
And the Sonoma and Marin County, apparently.
Well, I'm just going along with our president. But this was designed to help our restaurants get through the pandemic, and I think we have. And I really want this council and our future council, who will be seated just in a few months, and our community to come together and really imagine a Sonoma master plan that really includes more al fresco dining on the plaza itself, but for our restaurants. And I'm excited to talk about that later in this meeting.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Barnett.
Through the mayor, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay.
Of course.
I love the idea of extended sidewalks. I always have. I mean, I've lived in Europe. I like that. Fine. But we can't predict what the master plan is going to look like, right? We can't predict that. So it may have it may end up with what you described. It may not. So that's why I feel like in the interim, I feel comfortable sticking with what we have. I do support the master plan, of course, and I look forward to that discussion when it happens.
You're right. I mean, we can't predict it, but I would assume that if the community wants it and the future councils want that, we can make sure that, from what I understand, we can make that happen. I mean, it's going to be complicated with circulation and everything and parking, but I think it's a good vision to aspire to.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I will volunteer to go to Italy to check out the al fresco on my own money, on my own time, so that I would like to relieve everyone of that stress.
Oh, interesting. Actually, I agree with Sandro and Kelso. We should stick with the decision we made. It is serious to be compliant because we discussed a lot and made it using our experience, using our vision, and made a decision. Although it changed a lot under, a lot of things under uncertainty. And also, I appreciate Councilmember Felder itemize, refresh everyone. We need to do this, need to do that, to the 6 or 7 items. Once and we discuss these items, I strongly felt, wow, it's lots of work. I was wondering how the staff, how the management and capability, outreach capabilities can meet this kind of requirement. Not only the inspection, we need to help restaurant owners make the correction. That is a long process, a lot of the detailed work. So, if you already still remember, on the last time when the planning director, the staff will give us a presentation, I asked, do you have enough resource to do that? If you don't have, we just approved our budget. If necessary, and our city council, we can discuss and make amendment for the budget. So I'm not sure Sue and the city manager, did you hire additional people to become the compliant to finish itemized or extra hours for the staff to work on those compliance, inspection, and the correction.
Was that at the August 17th meeting that you said that?
No, I believe that is in the July in the meeting. Yeah, in the July in the meeting. After we just passed, and then our budget.
I would have to go back to, well, we didn't have any meetings.
Yeah, but
in July.
anyway, it's okay.
Yeah.
I still think, a lot of work we should do, and we haven't done. So it's not a good time for us and make another, the deadline or another plan. So definitely, it's not proper.
So, just to say, I'd have to go back and look at that, which particular, at the June 1st, or what, if we were directed to
Yes.
amend the budget, because it would require additional staff.
Yes,
to
that
do
is what I was
to do
thinking.
but I don't recall that direction, and that would be, I mean, we would require it. I do want to make a clarification. I was here at the June 1st meeting.
Yes.
Acting city manager, he was recapping, and he was actually using the letter we had sent out as the guidelines, but I was here at that meeting, and we didn't go through each of those items at the meeting, because
Okay.
I later got notification that the council had not voted on those items. So,
All right.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, please follow.
Thank you. And I'd like to speak at this moment with our city attorney. We're sort of getting off track with going through the requirements that I understand may have not been done. So we're talking about maybe hiring staff and looking at all this stuff. I think for me, we're getting off track, and I don't know, we have some answers to give, to work out, not, imagining. Like I said, I still volunteer to go to Italy, but, I know that's not part of our plan here. But I'd like to stick to what's here, what we're supposed to be working on.
And yeah, go ahead.
Well, just to follow up on that, I think we did have one ad hoc meeting after June 1st, and we talked with the staff considerably. And, in my view, staff was, is obviously going to take council's direction. But we asked them how much time has been spent on parklets up to this point, and how much time moving forward can be expected to spend, they can expect to spend on it. And, these are, as I've discussed many times, is a very complicated issue, and that requires a tremendous amount of staff time. And every hour staff spends on parklets at this point, we're not addressing housing or parks or really anything else in the city. And that's just unfortunately a result of our city's, our resources and priorities. And so, in my view, I think at this time, I would prefer staff to stop spending time on parklets and start working together with our community on a better future-oriented vision for the plaza. Also, one more thing. In a perfect world, we were asking staff this all the time, in a, let's say it's the best designed parklet, it's still going to be aesthetically challenging for the plaza. It's gonna be surrounded by these plastic white channelizers, delineators, curbs. I mean, it's the best looking parklet is still going to be, in my view, aesthetically challenging for the plaza. And we've learned that over the last few months, and I think that's important.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, and I
Yes,
just wanted,
please.
I appreciated your comments regarding Broadway and changing votes and so forth. But in this case, the vote changing that we're doing is not going to cost Caltrans any money. It's going to cost these guys. And that to me is the difference. And I understand that we may have made some changes along the way. I was part of some, not part of others. But we're making changes that are coming out of someone else's pocketbook, that are trying very hard to keep their businesses afloat and provide tax revenues to the city. So to me, that's the difference of those kinds of things. And it's why I feel I feel inclined to stay with the program and not disrupt the businesses any further.
That's great.
Well, I haven't seen any evidence that any of the restaurants have, and if the evidence is out there, have invested, because I haven't seen any parklets change since June 1st, and I'm not aware of staffing or others, but I certainly, from when I, you know, again, I live very close and I see parklets constantly, and I see, it seems to be a shift issue where people are outside in parklets and then inside is empty, or vice versa. I'm not convinced that, and I'm happy to be proven wrong, but not convinced that we would be impacting businesses' bottom lines, and ultimately we're not taking anything away that existed before March 2020.
That's great. Yeah, go ahead.
Could I ask the attorney, what are we doing here? How do we move forward? I mean, I'm seeing council discretion here.
You know, that's at the discretion of the mayor in terms of how he wants to run.
Yeah,
We've
I
got-
already
we have a-
mentioned,
Yeah.
I don't want to set up another line, that date. But I totally agree with and move forward for the master and the plan. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm willing, just based on my discussion I've had with the lack of change on what these parklets were supposed to have accomplished or would accomplish by the 31st of October. It hasn't happened and won't happen. I will try one more time, and I will make a motion that we discontinue the parklet program on October 31st, 2022.
Anybody second? We have the motion, and if the second, and then we can discuss. Looks like a no second.
I'll second.
You second. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Agarmonte,
Well, on behalf of the residents and retail stores, I will continue to vote no. No more parklets. Thanks.
No.
motion is to discontinue, not.
To what?
You would have to vote positively if you want to discontinue parklets.
Oh, no, I do not want to continue parklets.
So that would be aye.
Okay, that would be aye. I apologize. I'm sort of lost in the minutia. Thank you.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
No.
Mayor Ding.
No.
The motion carries 3-2.
Let's move to agenda number 6.3. That is the consideration, discussion, and then a possible action to make the changes to the council, commission, and committee appointment policy and give the direction regarding the seating of the newly formed in the Parks and Recreation and Open Space Commission and the Climate Action Commission. Interim the city manager, Sue Casey, please.
I'm going to turn this over to Rebecca Barr, City Clerk.
So before you this evening is the review of the council, commission, and committee appointment policy. There's actually two things this evening. The first is the review, and the second is direction from the council regarding the newly formed PROS and the CAC Commission, the Climate Action Commission. The policy was first adopted in February of 2018, and it has come back to the council 3 separate occasions after that for changes and review. Recently, there was some discussion, and the council expressed a desire to conduct a review of the policy. And some of the areas that were recommended for review included how long applications are kept, how vacancies are filled, and the requirement that the alternate member be a registered or a qualified elector of the city. This is not an exhaustive.
Are we on the right item here? I'm confused.
Oh, yes. 6.3. 6.3. That is for the appointments and council, commission, and committee appointments policy.
Yeah, I think. If I might, I'm sorry to interrupt you. but are there two different things here? We've got 6.3, which has to do with whether or not we're going to seat these people, and then there's a separate thing on the, or they're together? Okay, they're together. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, thank you. I just needed that clarification. Thank you.
Well, I was always saying that what we had talked about, the express, those three things that had been specifically talked about, those are not the only items that are on the table for you guys to discuss tonight. You can look at the policy as a whole, and I ask that you do, and make comments regarding other items and give direction. Just as on the three that we did discuss, vacancies at this time are filled depending on if it's a Group A or a Group B commission. A Group A commission is done by nomination by the mayor, and they hold interviews for those commissions by the mayor and one additional council member. So as we saw with the Citizens Advisory Commission, and Mayor Ding and Vice Mayor Barnett did those interviews, conducted them, and then it is brought to the council for ratification. In the case of a Group B commission, the same process is followed as far as if there's a vacancy, we put out a recruitment, but then on those, rather than being selected by the mayor or nominated by the mayor, they are brought before the council, and each of you have a direct appointment. So those can be made without any sort of interviews. It's whatever background you want to do on the individual, and that's made at a open session meeting. And we have then the alternate and the at-large members are appointed by the council as a whole. There's a whole rotation process of how those appointments are chosen. And then right now we do have 3 vacancies on the Group B commissions: the Planning Commission alternate, 1 traffic safety direct appointment, which belonged to previous Councilmember Hundley, and the traffic safety alternate. We did conduct a recruitment for the Planning Commission alternate and received no qualified applications. And the traffic safety, those are there because the Traffic Safety Committee as a whole was under review, and it was put on hold till the disposition of that committee was established, which that just was reactivated, and so we can start filling those. Retention of the applications. Before the policy was adopted, we did keep all applications received on file for 12 months from the time the position was filled. When that was enacted, it was changed, that each time we have a recruitment, a new application period is open. The one thing on this is that if someone does want to reapply, they can let me know, and I offer them this. They can let me know, and I can just reactivate their application in the system. I ask them if there's any changes, and they let me know, and we can. So it's not where they're having to reapply each time as far as filling the application out. The alternate requirement came about because at the time. 6 of the members in the Planning Commission, 6 of the members have to be qualified electors per municipal code. And the alternate has to be able to step into any position, and they will at times have to step into a qualified elected or elector position. And that's why that piece was put in. Other items that for consideration before we go to the pros is the commission application. The current application was created in conjunction with the City Attorney's Office to address conflict of interest and sphere of influence laws. It's been my experience and the staff's experience that some individuals are not willing to disclose their financial interests via the annual filing of the statement, which is a requirement for all of our commissions. And we'll be reviewing that application. We'll happily take input on that. And we'll make changes based on that to make it more user-friendly. And lastly, the other option or the other action is the direction on the PROS and the Climate Action Commission. In August, we conducted a recruitment, and we have received those applications, and you can proceed with filling those. However, 3 of you will be leaving the council coming up very soon. And if you seat these commissioners now, in when basically they would be on in the commission for 4 months, because when the new members come in, they will appoint their own person. They may not choose to appoint the same person that you did. So staff's requesting that you give us, and we had talked a little bit about this, but we just want formal direction, whether we proceed in seating the commissions or wait until the overall recruitment, which will be taking place in the next month. We'll be sending out the information for all the commissions and committees. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I think it's just 4 months, maybe just extend the ones that are appointed right now unless they've left.
We haven't seated those commissions, council member.
I have.
No, the pros, the parks, the two new ones.
Oh, all right,
Those
okay.
are the ones we're referring to.
Okay, and my question is, I requested that people who are lined up as applicants, are they being made aware of what's going on?
Yes, I did send out an email after the last meeting when we had this discussion and explained where we were at with this to all of them.
Okay, because as I mentioned to you, a couple of people have asked me, what's the status? So I appreciate your doing that. Thank you.
My idea is, especially for the new commission, 4 months, we already in the setup with the 2 commissions, but feels like we were not working on this. This function and is missing for the next 4 months, and it doesn't make any sense for me. The city council always change, the term by term, but the government organization should working as usual, as normal as possible. I know a lot of the work we needed to do, and another thought is, our current incumbents, or not incumbents, current city council members, they are very knowledgeable and great quality. Maybe they want to choose the right person, which and the future council member will agree with. And in this way, we can let the 2 new commission working, although just only in 4 months.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a suggestion just on process here? There's a lot to unpack in this. That's why I was asking, how we were going to go about it at the beginning. If we could sort of chunk this out so that right now we're sort of starting at the bottom, is just talk about whether or not we should take action on seating these 2 commissions prior to the election and make a decision on that, and then go to the question of the application and all of the various parts of that, because everything is just kind of going every which way, and
I think it's a good idea.
And I'm a little bit I'm a little confused myself. So if that would be okay, to just let's start with that. What are we going to do with these 2 commissions, and then go to the next?
Well,
thing?
with respect to that, my view is that we should wait until the new city council is seated to establish and appoint those commissions. As Mayor Ding said, I'm sure that the 3 of us that are outgoing would select good members. But part of the reason why I like the commission appointment policy is that, in my view, it's very democratic in the sense that we elect city council members and they make all the different appointments to commissions. And it just creates an awkward situation for newly seated council members to remove commissioners, even if they are good. Maybe they like them, maybe they don't. It just, since we're only 4 months away, I would prefer we just have the new council make those appointments.
I concur with that as someone who's a relatively new council member, and I had to look at who my inherited appointments, and there is you don't want to say, well, I'm here I am and now you're out, kind of thing. But on the other hand, you want to make your own decisions. Yeah. So I totally concur with that, and I will say that a few of the people who I've encouraged to apply for these have reached out to me, and I said I think we're waiting for the election, and they felt very comfortable with that. They were not in a hurry to give up whatever their Tuesday evenings or whatever it is. So. So that would, I'd like to make a motion to that effect, that we postpone the choice and seating of our two newest commissions until after the new council's sworn in.
Who second?
I'll second.
All right. Roll
Shall
call,
we
please.
take some public comment?
Oh,
on
public
that
comments,
particular item
please.
before we take action?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Public comments? None. How about in a Zoom meeting and raise their hands? No?
Mayor Ding.
All right. Let me close in the public. And we have the motion and we have the second. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Barnett.
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte.
Aye.
Councilmember Felder.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe.
Aye.
Mayor Ding.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda number. Oh.
We got more.
Oh, we have.
We got a lot of more. We got more. Good try, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor. Good try.
You have the more. Yes.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions on this.
Sure.
I know I'm the one who's sort of been stirring the pot on this, but I'd like to start out with asking some questions through the mayor of the our legal counsel, and that has to do with the statement regarding the municipal code.
Municipal code.
For example, the municipal code regarding the planning commission, 6 of whom shall be qualified electors of the city, and then the remaining member may be a qualified elector of in Sonoma Valley. I believe my interpretation of that has to do with where they reside, not whether or not they're a voter.
Qualified elector is a term of art in the elections code, and it means someone who is a registered voter, essentially.
Right. So the person who is may be a qualified elector, does that mean they may be a voter or they may not be a voter? Or what does that mean?
Well, I guess the way I interpreted it,
If you don't mind, I can tell you when we put this in place, it was that they would be, it wasn't that they would not be a voter, but they could be, it was that they would be a qualified voter, but it could be in the valley.
Well, that's what I know you meant. What I'm asking is a legal opinion as to whether the remaining member may be a qualified elector, since it is a term of art or term of standard or whatever you want to call it. Does that mean that they may not be, they don't necessarily have to be a voter? That's the way I read it.
no, I do think, you're going to interpret this based on, you're going to try to interpret what the intent of the
Thank you.
authors were.
I get it.
And to determine that, first you look at the language, and if there's ambiguity, then you would go back and look at the staff report
Okay.
and the comments. And I think I've looked at a lot of the other provisions for the other committees, and it does seem to be the intent here is just that they widen the scope to Sonoma Valley, not to people beyond those who are registered voters.
Thank you.
But it is true, Councilmember Lowe, that there was a recent law enacted in 2019 that allows cities and counties to appoint people who aren't registered voters to committees.
Thank you.
But to do so would require a change in our ordinance, at least with respect to the planning commissioners.
Right.
And I believe the others as well.
Yeah, and that is what I'm suggesting tonight. And I want to, if you'll bear with me on this a little bit, I want to read a letter, which I'll put into the record here. And this is from someone who lives in Sonoma. Maybe you know her. Her name is Renata Verk. She couldn't be here tonight. It says, "Hi, Sandra. As you know, I've lived in Sonoma for 18 years. Both of my children went through the public school system here. I have fundraised on a number of local nonprofits over the years. I have worked on the local newspaper, the Sonoma Index Tribune, had a radio show on KSVY, our local radio station, started Valley the Moon magazine, and I'm now the publisher of Sonoma's only local magazine, The Social Publication, a local community magazine that comes out monthly, highlighting positive stories about people, events, businesses, and even pets of Sonoma. I am a green card holder, and as I wait to become a citizen, I am not able to vote locally. I am sure there are many others similarly situated in Sonoma who should be given a chance to have a voice." I met Ms. Verk through mutual friends because I was looking for people to be on committees, and she was recommended to me. We sat and had coffee for a couple of hours, and I was all set to, go through how to fill out the application. And, this came up, and I didn't realize she holds a Canadian passport at the moment. She is in the process of taking her test to become a citizen. I can't imagine anyone I've met over the last couple months who would have been more qualified to sit on any of our commissions than this lovely lady. I would like to change, and now we can, according to our attorney, and use residency based on proving residency the same way that you do at the DMV, and you're allowed to get on an airplane and fly with your driver's license. So I think that that's even a higher standard than voter registration if you're determining where somebody lives. In fact, as you probably know, you do not have to prove your residence in order to register to vote. You do, to get your driver's license, you have to provide 2 pieces, like a bank statement, PG&E bill, etc. I think if it's good enough for the DMV, I think it's good enough for the city of Sonoma, and I think that we are absolutely missing out on so many people who would be qualified to be on our committees and commissions by having this, what I feel is rather archaic language regarding electors. I think the intent was to see if you lived in the city of Sonoma, as you pointed out, or whether you live in the school district, in the environs around there. And I would like to have the pool of people who would like to come forward and help us be broadened. The other thing, when you rely on voters, I pulled up the voter statistics because, y'all know I do this for a living, so bear with me because mindless numbers are sort of where I'm at most of the time. The voters in the city of Sonoma, if you are primarily almost 90% are non-Hispanic, non-Latino, non-African American, not Asian. 90%. So when you are looking at only voters, it's pretty hard to diversify your commissions and committees. And in fact, our own mayor went through this process. And during the time he was going through this process, he would not have been qualified to be on any of these committees. So I think there's great people out there, and I see this as a barrier. And I don't think we should be putting up barriers. I think we should be inviting people in. So my recommendation is that we change it to residency of the city, and that they have to provide proof as they do when they get their driver's license. So that's one thing.
You first, or everyone needed to. Yeah.
Okay. Specifically, since 2019, since that law changed, where we can have non-voters on commissions, have other cities done that? And if they have, what, to Councilwoman Lowe's point, what? Obviously now, if you need to prove you live in the city, it's just it's easy. You go to the Registrar of Voters. What do other cities require now for, to prove where you live?
I will have to ask that question. Unfortunately, I did not. I got the information from the attorney today regarding that rule.
Okay.
And then I was leaving for council meeting. So I will send that out to our, I can do a statewide listserv if you like, or I can do it just countywide.
I'm just curious because I'm inclined to support Councilwoman Lowe's, view on that. I'm persuaded by it. I'm just curious how the process would unfold at that point.
I can definitely bring that information.
And I have a question. I'm sorry, the status is permanent resident?
That they're a resident of the city of Sonoma.
Permanent resident, immigration status.
We can't ask people's immigration status.
Well,
that's been settled.
I've worked on immigration for a United States senator, and sometimes there are restrictions that come with whatever status that is, whatever it is, I have no idea. But there are some restrictions that you can't serve on certain things, so I don't know how. I mean, it seems wonderful, but I don't know if it's something that we're actually able to do. So I don't have an answer.
Well, under the, I believe it's, let me get the, I can get the bill number.
Yeah. How about,
Yeah.
do you have?
It's in Government Code 1020, and it says specifically that regardless of citizenship or immigration status, that any person is eligible to hold an appointed civil office if the person is 18 and a resident of the state. That's it. And they are entitled to whatever stipend, an elector would be entitled to. And this is for appointed commissions only. For city council members, you still have to be, under the laws, under the general law of the state, a registered voter to be an elected representative. So this is only relates to appointed.
And that's what I wanted to hear and be clear about it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I mean, undocumented, that's totally legal. There's no problem with that. Documented in terms of having a green card, which is called lawful permanent residency, or some other type of, H-1B, work visa or something. Those are all permissible statuses, and as Councilmember Lowe mentioned, it's really
I
not.
appreciate you're explaining that. Thanks.
Can I ask
Yes.
Can I ask a question, Councilmember Lowe? You had said that removing that qualified elector and that they were a city resident. Are you saying remove the valley piece or? Okay,
No,
just
I
making
mean,
sure.
so they would, they could still, I think the intent was that, the 5 members of the Planning Commission, using that as an example, would be residents of the city of Sonoma, and there would be also someone who may be or may not be, that lives outside. I mean, I think that the
Nothing would
intent.
change.
Nothing would change.
Perfect. I just wanted to clarify.
It's
that.
just, we wouldn't be looking up their voter
I think
status.
for this item, though, because this requires an ordinance amendment, I think staff would just need direction at this point from the council that this is something that you wanted us to bring back. Would be
Correct, that's why I was asking about the
So the-
municipal code
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
Bob, it's not a function
I
of the
would like
policy.
a clarification on what is required for proof of residency, and have some indication of what other cities have done, because to me, if you're not, the registered voter is a pretty clear-cut thing, but I would like to have an established procedure that makes sense, not just, that somebody can manufacture fake IDs or whatever and get on.
Yeah, let me, first of all, I, agree with Sandra Lowe and this kind of concept. Rather more voice and could be heard from the local government at the commissioner level. It's not, the elected level. But being an immigrant, I have experienced more than 20 years struggling, that means to be compliant as the legal foreigner. First step as a student, and later work visa, and then the green card, that is so-called permanent residency card. And then after that, that is the big step. That is from the green card to the citizenship. That is really big step. People need to think seriously who you are, where you come from, what do you want to work for, what country you want to fighting for. It's a serious issue. This kind of the citizenship, I don't think is kind of a privilege. You should earn it. A lot of the criteria itemized one by one. Yeah, so something like when I swore and before the U.S. flag, let me become elected officers. So I don't, especially for the time being, also we have the homeland security issues. So that being a local officer, whatever, appointed or elected, so that is really the big deal. So that I would like to take it very serious, but I totally agree with the Sandra Lowe's suggestions, especially that in the case. That case, we could set up exemption. For example, this is a wonderful lady already submit citizenship application. If they said they already become the green card for many years right now,
We
just
don't know
waiting
her
for
status.
yeah.
We don't know her status.
Without the status, that is the
I mean, I'm saying it doesn't matter, but I'm told we
But
can
it-
ask.
okay.
So I don't know what it is.
Yeah, because for example, right now, we carried out the new requirement. Next year, we got on an airplane. We need a so-called real ID. It's not a driver's license. Next year, starting the next year, we cannot, get on board. And with your driver's license, you should have real ID on the driver's license, and the right up corner, we should go to the beer, and then you can. Otherwise, you cannot get on the airplane. So also we need to find out this kind of background information and take it serious. Yeah, passport is fine. Passport, that means citizenship. Yeah, foreign the passport. Yeah, that is right.
Well, I appreciate, thank you, Mayor Ding, for your comments, because you certainly have been through this, and I appreciate them. I think that our attorney, in reading us the government code, could bring back to us a revision that would work, and maybe look at some examples from other places at the next meeting or subsequent meetings.
That's great. Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm not exactly quite sure of the revision that we would be looking at. I mean, right now, the way that the ordinance is written, any appointee to a commission needs to be a registered voter, so we can't make an exception.
Right, no, it's not an exception. It would be changing it to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would it be changing it to like a green card holder?
We
Would it just be
can't ask
nothing?
You cannot ask. If
You
you
can't
cannot
ask that.
ask if you want to get a position. That is the, I'm not familiar and yeah.
Can't ask. We can't. You can't ask people their immigration status. So you can't ask that. But I think that he gets where we're going with this. I think, and maybe bring something back, and then some examples from other places and how they do the proof of residency.
Yeah, I mean, we might want to consider, it's easy to change the ordinance in terms of determining how we establish city residency. That may be something that we deal with in a policy, so that we don't have to change it every time. And that way, we can adopt the ordinance, which takes 2 readings, takes a while, and in that time, develop policy with council and in consultation with the.
I have a question. You're saying residency like they live here, or residency here in the United States?
That they live in the
They- where
city of
live they-
Sonoma or
Sonoma.
Sonoma Valley.
It's a double meaning.
Yeah.
Well, you're both, I mean, you're in Sonoma,
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
don't, if you're a citizen of something else.
I would.
But you can be a citizen of the United States and have residency in
Yeah.
Baja,
For
Mexico.
your,
My question
for,
is.
yes, please.
But the question is, how, if you list a physical address that's within the city limits for whatever, if it happens to be their office as opposed to their residence, then that's why I want something that is more secure or definitive as proof of residency than just, an address on some bill or something.
Yeah.
That's how you get your real ID.
Yeah.
I mean, I just got mine, and that's what they accept for your real ID. So to me, it's like I think it's a much higher standard of real ID than serving on the commission
But
of the city.
Can you register to vote at your office?
You
You can.
There is
drop
no
it at your
proof.
office.
There is no proof of address when you register to vote. There is
Oh, I know,
no proof
I know,
of address.
but well.
So yes,
correct.
the answer is yes. You can. But the amount of fraud that occurs with people trying, we're pulling teeth to get people on these commissions. I don't see a whole lot of, I'm going to say I work at Jack and I'm going to register that I live a Jack in the Box so I can be on the planning commission. I just don't see that's going to happen.
People have done that.
Well, there's a lot of things that people do, but I think that, if you have the same standard as getting a real ID, I mean, at least, then it's on them, It's like we tell people not to water their lawns. I drive by, I see it all the time. I mean, you can only do so much.
David, could you do some of the research, see other cities, what they are doing? I was told some of the city, the school board or something like that, if you present a green card or your residency in the proof, and you are able to be a candidate to become the school board or another, the commissioner. In this way, we can get a reference here.
Well, that one was thrown out. That was thrown out.
Because they are the taxpayers, actually, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did just today, in light of this, verify that city council members have to be registered voters. Hence,
Yes, that is right. Mm-hmm.
So,
we are not changing that. We just, that is second level.
but I do believe there are a number of other cities that have done this. So I'm sure that our clerk can find ample evidence of that. So thank you. I think we have unless you want to get some more public comment, I think we have direction with respect to this one item.
I have other comments on this.
All right, let me open to the public. Robert, do you have any comments? You are late. You came late today.
It's like the Socrates, like law school. You just talk.
3 minutes, yes. Good evening. I'm sorry I was late for 6.2. I was at a Sonoma League board meeting. I agree that we need to expand our inventory of candidates for these positions, and as long as they meet the requirements for like a real ID, I think we would welcome them. The more the better. I've always liked citizen participation. In fact, I was planning to speak on the next agenda item, so I would support that. And I congratulate our mayor for having gone through all those hoops. We're very happy he's with us and serving us well. And I also agree with Councilmember Felder that we have to be careful and we set these standards. But let's go forward, and the more diverse opinions on these commissions and committees, the better, I think. Thank you for letting me talk. That's a warm-up for next time. Thank you.
All right. Yes.
Can we talk about some of the other parts of this this item, Mr. Mayor?
Right now, I haven't closed the public comments yet.
Sorry.
How about the Zoom? Do you have it?
No one's raising
no
their
one. Right now, then let me close the public comments.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
All right, so I want to talk about the application itself. And you mentioned that it was developed in concert with the city attorney because there was some concern about people not filling out their 700 statement of economic interest. And I'd just like to say that those are two separate things in my mind. And that, for example, you run for city council and you're required to do your statement of economic interest. You don't have to fill out, in order to run for city council, your employer and, if you're a renter or all of these other kinds of things. You fill it out afterwards. It's a separate form. And it's the responsibility of the council member, it's the responsibility of the member of the commissions to fill those out. And I think that we've sort of somehow, it seems like those two things have become intertwined, and I would like to get all of that information, which really kind of produces a chilling effect on the applicant, that we're asking things like employment status, their employer, their length of residency, etc., which I think, if I'm hearing you right, was the reason you asked was because it had something to do with not giving that information subsequently on the Form 700, but I don't understand why those things got mixed together.
The information on leasing or owning your home, I know you had commented on that. That piece was, those were all in because of, so that the sphere of influence and conflict could be looked at by the city attorney. That was why he did that. It was before David was with us. That was Jeff Walter. We added that in because of that. As far as the information about the length of residency, those were things that were already on the application before before doing this one. And then as far as the statement of economic interest, it is, as what I said, it's been a lot of times, and we even had someone who was going to run for council, but when they found out what they had to disclose, they said no. And so we've had that experience with commissioners as well that were like, well, I didn't know I had to do that, and I don't want to do that. And they were very upset that they had to, and that's why we started disclosing it right up front, because if they're not interested in doing that, then they don't have to go through the process of, and again, these are all things that we can change if that's the council's decision.
Well, I mean, they have to fill out the statement of economic interest, and I think that we should separate those two things, and I don't think we should prejudge whether or not someone has a conflict of interest on their application. And because I can just tell you, I've been going through these with people. So these are real life experiences I'm having with people. These are not academic things. These are people who said, we're confused, for example, like length of residency, because the person who I subsequently appointed had lived in the city for a while, and then she, now she lives outside the city limits. She wasn't sure even how to answer that question. I think it's a legit question, to find out, but I think that should be somewhere in the reason for applying. Please include such things as your experience in the city of Sonoma, how long you've lived here, etc., to be more in the narrative rather than, because it didn't even apply in her particular case. She couldn't really answer it correctly. And the employment status and the employer, I just don't think that's part of an application to be on a commission. I've never seen that before. So I'd like those things to be taken off. And so when someone applies, they spend more time telling us about themselves and their experience and what they know about the city and how, the meetings that they've been to. All of that I think is great. But that part up there just seems like it's not necessary. But I think you should that they should be told you have to fill out this form, and if they decide not to do it, then they can't be on the commission. That's just the way it goes. So maybe what we really need to do is some sort of training so that people know, like the Brown Act, the Statement of Economic Interest, Robert's Rules, a code of conduct if we should ever adopt something like that, which I think is a good idea. And so they know, maybe they.
And we do. We have there's actually we did it in the last go around, the city attorney, myself, and the city manager at the time. We invited everyone in. We had an in-person, about a 2-hour session on all of those pieces. It's actually, it was videoed. And so now when we have the one-offs where the vacancy occurs, I send them that link so they can watch it. That is in place.
Well, that sounds great, and thank you for letting me know, because I didn't know that, and I don't see it on the website anywhere. So maybe that's something that we could tell people before you fill out this application, please look at this informative video that will tell you some of the things that you have to do, or something like that. But I'm curious what my fellow council members think about this employment status and employer, and whether or not that's appropriate on the thing.
Through the mayor, can I just comment on the questions on the application about do you own property in Sonoma, rent property, etc. So yeah, I wasn't involved in preparing this, and there's nothing that prevents the council from getting rid of this. But just to explain what I believe was the intent behind it, as you know, if you own real property in the city, that can present a conflict. and you've probably been presented with maps that show where your property is located in a line of 500 or 1,000 feet. So that helps identify what projects you probably won't be able to participate in. That's information that could be helpful to this council as the appointing body or the appointing council member to see where in fact this person is not going to be able to participate. Likewise, there's a question about the organization's businesses, so that would relate to business interests. And then the last question is really more for like planning commissioners. It's about due process and common law bias. So the question asks if you've made public statements about a particular project that would potentially disqualify you from deciding that project if it came before you. So these are all things that are going to be relevant and could be relevant to the appointing person, but they're not necessary. You don't necessarily have to know them when you do the appointment, but just so you understand the background.
You know their address, right? Because they have to prove that they're in the city limits. So you know where they live. So I live at 651 Whitebriar Drive. So, but does,
Right.
if I'm a renter at 651 Whitebriar Drive, so it doesn't matter if they
If it's
put
month to month. it
Right.
doesn't
So if
matter.
you have
Yeah.
if you have a lease that's more than month to month, then that's considered a property interest, and it would disqualify you just as if you owned the property. But if it's a month to month tenancy, according to the Fair Political Practices Commission, that's not a property interest that would require you to be recused under the Political Reform Act.
Okay, and I think those are things are best explained after the application. Honestly, I just think we need to know their address, and then we explain that to them.
And the interesting thing, though, is of course, your home address you should not be putting on your Form 700 because that's private. So what you do have to put on your Form 700 is all of the rental properties you may own or the commercial properties.
You don't put
And
your
that
home
has
address on
actually
700?
happened.
You shouldn't be putting your home address on your Form 700. It still
Oh,
constitutes.
no, but you put it under what you own.
It still constitutes a basis for a conflict.
Right.
But you don't have
Oh, not on
to put it in
700.
a
Got
public
it.
record.
Right.
You're right. It's different. Sorry. Yeah.
Because what you've just mentioned in the first piece of information, that has happened to councils. So it's very, it's relevant. I know if you have a bridge built by you, there have been, people who couldn't vote on that. So, yeah, I think that's important
Yeah,
to
and
know.
it's up to you whether or not that's something that you want to know about the person that you're going to be appointing. Are they going to be able to vote on anything that comes up with respect to this area of town?
Is there any specific authority give the city council member a certain authority or verify if he or she feel comfortable, did some due diligence, the work, and then I'm not sure. I don't have.
That's at the council's discretion.
I think address works for me because, as you just described, they could be a long-term tenant with a lease where the conflict of interest or the 500 barrier still applied, right? So we wouldn't know from renting. I mean, that's not going to give us any really more information unless you drill down on that and say, well, do you have a lease? And do you have a long-term lease? And I mean, I just, if we did that on an application, people are embarrassed. They don't, that's a lot of, they just want to know because they think, well, you're not going to, I mean, people have said this to me. You're not going to pick me. I'm just a renter, or I live in this particular apartment building. And, I just want to remove any kind of barrier that might make someone feel like we're not choosing them because of, their lot in life. It just doesn't seem right.
Can I make a suggestion possibly if we remove that language? I prepare for council, people that are interested in running for council. It's just a small brochure that says, so you're interested in running for council. These are what you're going to have to do. These are, there's disclosure laws that you're going to have to bear with. But that way, if someone's interested, they can review that ahead of time and say, oh, rather than asking those questions, we can put in, if you rent month to month, or, lease, address it all like in a brochure or a pamphlet that we can give out.
I don't understand.
Information is good, always.
So what is the next step, David? What do we just leave it here, or we need to have anything in the take the motion, or?
I think the staff is looking for direction on whether or not to make
Okay.
changes to the application. I think we've heard from Councilmember Lowe, but we haven't heard from the other council members as to what their preference is with respect to the application.
I have no issue with any of the changes that Councilwoman Lowe suggested, and I believe in the staff report it said that city attorney and you guys were going to work on trying to create a more user-friendly, and if the theme is also inclusivity, and I totally support that.
Likewise.
I support the changes as long as we have definitive description of what those changes will entail.
Meaning you'd like it to be brought back?
Yeah.
It's going to, right? Or I mean, that's what.
I mean,
Yeah, the staff report said, yes,
things
yeah.
like registered voter versus resident.
Yeah, that certainly has to come back.
yeah.
Applications, sometimes you never even see applications.
Yeah.
We don't typically bring those back, but we can if that's.
Yeah, it wasn't until I went on there and pretended like I was applying for someone, because you can't see it unless you get in there and you start applying, and then it pops up, and then I saw
Yeah.
it because people were asking me a lot of questions about it, and so I apologize for taking up so much time on this, but we are looking in the future at all new appointments. I am out there trying to get people to apply, and all of these questions have come up, so I'm sharing them. And then my final one is that we have a youth member on our two newest commissions, and I'd like to suggest that we have a youth member on all of our commissions.
That is, I totally agree. Yeah, each commission.
Well,
have the-
I mean, I like the spirit of that,
Yeah.
and I think obviously climate action and Parks and Rec for sure. Cultural and fine arts, I don't know if we do, but that sounds like it would be good. I think a planning commissioner, youth, might be interesting. I mean, if they want to participate, as a non-voting member,
They are non-voting.
maybe
member.
I would
Yeah,
be open to
they are.
talking about that. But I would, especially like design review and planning, where we're talking about like land use, and those are the only commissions that we're required to have by state law. I would be a little hesitant on like voting members on that, but
Yeah, for
happy to have the conversation.
They have to be 18 to be a voting.
Yes.
On any of them?
No, youth. That I mean.
Or, and
usually-
so no youth can vote on any of them?
That's right.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that. Okay.
No. Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
It's just like, when I was on the school board, we had a youth trustee,
Mm-hmm.
and they participated. They sat there, and when we all voted, they just smiled or grimaced, depending. That was it.
I would have loved to be on the planning commission in high school.
That is
so.
good.
I was
I would
just
have loved-
looking over at
yeah.
you, going like, there's someone out there that would have loved this. No, listen. Isn't that great though? If you have someone that comes to this and they're in high school and they get involved, and then we're going to have a bench of great informed citizens that are going to, be on our committees and take my place in this chair, for goodness sakes. I mean, the whole job. I mean, I'm an organizer, so they tell you your number one job as an organizer is to find your replacement. That's your number one job. And once you do that, and I'm telling you, it's hard. I'm having a hard time because there's so many barriers for people to get involved, and it seems like it would be an easy thing, and it's not. So that's why, having had all these conversations with people, and I thank so much Renata for writing this wonderful letter, I've just realized we're making it hard for people, and we should make it easy, because I want exactly the Kelso, high school Kelso to show up and ask the good questions.
Yeah. I don't know if everyone would like that, but yeah.
Oh, I would enjoy it. I taught high school. I'm good at it.
That is. Yeah, that is wonderful. Yeah. So any more comments for this point? Yeah, that's a great idea. And then, do we need anything we needed to do, or?
So the direction is not only to amend the ordinances to allow
Youth
non-electors,
commission.
but also
Yeah.
to include a ex officio youth member.
When we mentioned about the age, we already see that younger than 18. And what is the qualified? I would not say the qualified an age, and not in 10 years at least, or 14. I'm not sure. Yeah. Do you have any idea?
I thought it was 14.
Yeah, we should probably have a minimum.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, we had a minimum.
is.
Might not be good to have like a
Yeah.
7-year-old on the
Yeah.
commission. Yeah.
Doogie Howser
Yeah.
is going to show up.
Yeah. We can look. Yeah, just check it. Minimum at least. We were not required. They got in a
I think it's high school
14
age.
to 18.
Yeah,
Oh,
14
14, 18.
High
Yes.
school age, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
This is
Thank you,
the
Dave.
one that doesn't exist. But
And they can
Yeah.
be, they just have to live within the jurisdiction. Like they don't have to go to necessarily Sonoma High. but
Yes.
They just have to live. Okay.
Yes. School district. That's
yeah, I
great.
think we had it including the whole valley.
Yeah, school.
Sonoma
board,
School District, Sonoma Valley School District.
So, and with respect to the application, there was one council member that wanted to see the application. Is that the direction?
I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
14. Any other directions you are looking for? Oh, thank you. Yeah, you bring a lot of the new items, fresh on
I
mind.
think that's the importance of having new
Important.
council members.
Yes.
They bring different ideas.
Yeah, that is right. Yeah.
Just out there trying to find my replacement.
So just a question then, do you want to stay with the way we're doing the applications now? As far as we do not keep them on file, they don't stay active unless someone says they want to reapply, because that was one of the concerns that we heard.
I would too, yeah. Yeah, and to look through, because, sometimes somebody applies for something and you go, God, this is a really great person, but not for this. And then there's an opening that pops up on something else and they go like, that person, and you call them up. They're,
Like maybe in the application, it can almost be like a universal application. You're interested in check off the commission, and you can check off multiple ones. And yeah.
Well, I think all of the council members should be provided the application and resumes of people that they're attempting to ratify.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've got that note.
Although I know that used to happen, and they used to be posted online, and just if there's like personal information, just make sure that they're not. It's redacted.
I redact any
Okay,
personal
yeah.
information, signatures online, and that is one thing that they will be posted. In order for me to give them to all of you to review, they have to be posted to the public.
Yeah.
Well, not in the packet, but if I give them to you ahead of time so you can review them, either they'll be in the packet or I have to make them available to the public at the same time. So,
And to reiterate, I would like to make sure that the people who are already in line to be applicants for something, that they're informed of everything that's going on, because they just get discouraged, and and it would be nice if they know they're still somewhere in there. Thank you.
I'm wondering, I received some of the suggestion from the local residents for the youth government, and internship position. I'm not sure this is a good time we discuss, because right now it's a direction, or there may be other in the proper time.
It sounds like it's.
It is
it's
related,
not,
but
it's not related to the policy for choosing commissioners.
all right, yeah, let's talk the next time. And more direction that we are missing, we want to add it. Otherwise, I want to leave. And the 6.3, let's go to next agenda item. 6.4. Consideration, discussion, and a possible action to adopt the resolution authorizing a public improvement and a cost-sharing policy for construction, repair, reconstruction of the certain necessary off-site public improvements, and authorizing the city manager to implement the said policy. That is, should go to the public work director, Michael Berger, or city.
Good evening, Mayor Dane, council members. The purpose of the agenda item tonight is, as the mayor stated, requesting consideration, discussion, and possible action to adopt a resolution that would allow on qualifying construction projects. Chapter 12.14 of the Sonoma Municipal Code requires construction, repair, or reconstruction of public improvements such as curb, gutter, and sidewalk when the cumulative building permit valuation for projects on property exceed $50,000 over any 24-month period. Completing public improvements in most areas of the city is beneficial to the community and is necessary for public safety. On certain projects where the construction cost to a property owner to install necessary public improvements is disproportionately high compared to the valuation of the building permit, more comprehensive improvements can be completed if the city contributes limited resources to the public improvement. And as such, staff recommends the city manager, his or her designee, be authorized to determine on a case-by-case basis a city contribution in materials, equipment, or labor to help construct necessary public improvements, provided that it meets criteria that we have set. And I can go through that criteria. The estimated cost of the improvement is at least 25% of the building permit valuation for the project. The city's contribution does not exceed a maximum of $20,000 per project, which can be adjusted on a year-to-year basis. And the city's cumulative contribution towards necessary public improvements for all projects within any fiscal year shall not exceed $60,000, which can be adjusted annually also. And we thought that it would be a good idea just to put those numbers in there, because it isn't that we're requesting carte blanche to spend the general fund money as we so choose. These would be select projects that will represent a betterment to the city, and this is why I'm bringing this item forth to council tonight.
I have a question. Can you provide sort of like a real world example?
I can.
Okay.
And Rebecca can pull it up on the screen right now.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and this example that I put before you tonight, and Rebecca, could you go to page 2, please? Excellent. Yeah, so this project has been sitting in a queue for a little while, and it's at the intersection of 4th Street and Lovell Valley Road, at the dead end of the bike path. And a math teacher that taught school at the high school for many, many years used to live there. And there's an unimproved portion of the road on the north side of Lovell Valley from the round corner all the way to the next house. And it represents about 150 feet lineal. And the round corner is not ADA compliant at this time. And the problem is that for this specific project, the cost of I've been told by the building department, the cost of the improvement for the permitted work was $60,000 plus or minus. And the cost of the improvements for fixing the round corner all the way to the adjacent sidewalk, the adjacent property sidewalk, is $75,000. And the standard that we've applied here historically has been that it's not a one-to-one relationship. Meaning, if the homeowner is spending $60,000 on the project, the public improvements would be less than that, much less than that. to the tune of 25%, 20%. And it's negotiable. There's no standard. There's no percentage in the municipal code. So when I got on this job, I discussed with the homeowner about what staff felt was a fair and reasonable improvement for the right of way for this particular project that represented about $60,000 worth of work. And what we decided was that the round corner and then working our way up 4th Street to a point on the sidewalk there would be a reasonable upgrade for this project. And after I got into discussion with the engineer said, well, is there any way we can form a partnership here? And the city could do some of the work and the homeowner would do all the work. And I thought that was a great idea. But at the same time, in order to be fully transparent on something like this and make sure that there's no favoritism that was being granted, I felt it would be a good thing to bring this resolution before the council and get some feedback and see if there was any agreement on that. Because I think this section of sidewalk is just a great improvement for the city. It's at the end of the bike trail. It basically feeds right off the bike trail as a main artery. And there's a segment there that is unimproved. And so here again, this is why I'm here tonight. Councilmember Barnett, Vice Mayor, thanks for bringing that up because we had it sitting right here. And if anybody wanted to see it, there's a real world example right there.
Yeah.
And I don't have the next one on my docket. It's when these things come up, we're going to look at them on a case by case basis, talk to the city manager about them, but overall, is it a betterment for the city? And I felt that this one was just it was a no-brainer. And so myself, legal, building department, and the city manager crafted the language in here, and we think that we have a winning recipe.
That's good.
So you don't, I mean, I think this sounds wonderful, but you don't think other people who have been treated what they feel is unfairly or not, there's not going to be a backlash?
Yeah.
For example,
Personally, I
Neighbors,
don't.
we're
and
do the same thing.
I have an example, a personal one.
I'm sure you
When we
do.
remodeled our
That
home,
is right.
when we remodeled our home,
Yeah.
they would not, this city would not final us because, why? Because they wanted us to put a sidewalk on 5th Street East, which, big picture, I'm on the city council, certainly makes sense. But wouldn't that have been nice if somebody came along and said, you know what, I think we need to share the cost of that.
But that's a good example. Would that have risen to your standard? Because as you just pointed out, and I agree with you, this is right off the bike path, ADA access, all that. That is an improvement that I think would benefit the city. Perhaps the sidewalk, your sidewalk, wouldn't have that sort of general
No,
benefit.
I actually said, what I said was, I want that discount of ADA.
Right.
That's your
Yes.
responsibility, not
Yeah.
mine. So I'm just saying, all of 5th Street East, we have that gully
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And someday, maybe I'll move or die, they're going to be paving, not slurry sealing. Someday that thing's going to be paved. And that's when, you know what, it's a come to Jesus, that those things have to be improved. So I think that's what I was thinking about. And I think it's a wonderful idea because it doesn't feel like a normal city thing to do. And I know you've been wonderful to the people on the Mogadisums with the bridge. You were wonderful with them. They were scared to death about a lot of things that happened, and you allayed their fears, which I think was really wonderful. But I'm just saying, I walk around the city a lot. There are, and this has nothing to do with it, but I'm just saying, there are sidewalks that maybe raise up along East MacArthur a half a foot. And we're not shaving them, we've given up. So I'm just saying, I know what you're doing is a good thing. I agree with it. I will vote for it. But there are a lot of bad things that are going on for people, and maybe they feel that they should be given the same consideration.
Yes, because these kind of the partnership from the government and the individual, yeah, it's encouraged, especially the Sonoma. Here is very, we have the nicest people, including you, right? Cooperate. But I wonder if because these kind of projects are very subjective, so that we may set up some the limit. For example, county will provide the 20% or 30%. I'm not sure, based on the project. In this way, and the residents, got some of the sense, difference. In this way, also easy for you, because right now people trust you, relying on you, but someday in the future, if you moved, and we have the policy to follow, that is not.
I support this. I'm just saying, that's out there. You've dealt with this before, I'm sure, in your other city, and obviously.
Well, and actually, this is brand new. This is brand new. In my previous job, we had the sidewalk cost share program, and that we have something similar here in Sonoma. Over in Napa, it was expanded, and I remember approving invoices which covered half of the work up to $7,000, and ours is a little bit smaller. I believe it's capped at $1,000, but I'm not positive. I haven't seen that in writing yet, but there is no ratio currently. There's no percentage that the municipal code references once you hit the $50,000 limit, and so that is subjective off the bat. And so with our municipal code being subjective, I think that realistically, taking a look at each individual project, and it could be that the city isn't positioned to contribute. We're more capable of doing pavement work than we are concrete work right now. And that could change in 5 years. And it could be the opposite. And so really it's looking at it on a case-by-case basis. This project was very in line with the current workforce and being able to utilize the workforce and not have a big impact to the budget. And so that was one of the reasons why this project caught my eye. But here again, I think that just the fact that we're here, we're talking about it, we're trying to make it a resolution, we're trying to, because of that, we're trying to be as transparent as possible. And hopefully that lends itself to the policy moving forward, how I can envision it right now. Yeah.
No, I agree. I agree. As I said, I support that. I'm just saying, they're all around the city. There are unfair things. A woman on York didn't want those trees. We put them in 15, 20 years ago. She probably spent $20,000 or more improving the pavement for 300 feet. Didn't want those trees. We put them in, and they took up the sidewalk. So I'm just saying, these are things that people are thinking about. I support what you're doing. I think it's new, and I think I really appreciate your coming up with this.
Councilmember Felder.
I have another question. I think that maybe we should take a look at that $50,000 number too, because that number was increased. It used to be like $30,000, and as inflation and cost of building and everything has gone up, that got pushed up. Well, we're significantly higher now, especially in that area of the city, on what any improvement to a property is going to be, and I'm wondering if the $50,000 shouldn't be increased to something higher before it triggers those improvements.
Yeah, and Councilmember Felder, great point. And what I can tell you is the hard copy that I had on my bookshelf, it had the $40,000 threshold, and when I jumped online, it was $50,000. So whenever that hard copy was printed out, it has recently changed.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if it should even be pushed up higher.
With the cost of construction.
Potentially.
The cost of construction has gone so high.
Yeah.
So you're not doing a very large improvement to a property and spending $50,000.
Meaning if it was like 75 or 100,000, this project wouldn't have even triggered it, right? Because you said it was 65.
Say that again, please.
If we raised the limit from 50 to let's say 75,000, I mean, again, we're just sort of spitballing here. Didn't you say
Potentially, this project may not have
would
triggered
not have
it.
even triggered it?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
It was updated in 2021. Ordinance 07, 2021. I believe had the 50,000.
I would like to give you some the notion and regarding the sidewalk, especially the fine streets behind the high school, next to the Mason Nave and the creek. I visited over there several times. The owner, I believe they understand that they should take care of those kind of and the sidewalks because of the roots, they treat the roots. But it is very, very dangerous because the owner puts in a red flag on the next to the sidewalk. And I saw that the kids, when they're riding the bicycles around that place, that is really, if we can connect it with the homeowners, and if I feel like they are cooperative, but I gave them the direction. I said, these kind of project you shouldn't pay, But if possible, we can, encourage them, have the partnership. That would be, good.
Yeah, and specifically on that, where you're not doing an improvement, where you're required to pull a building permit, what the council could consider as a separate item would be to, and realistically, we're in the process of relaunching this at Public Works right now and determining what a really good plan of attack for reaching out to homeowners that have sidewalks that need work. And as the adjacent property owner, they're responsible for the maintenance of those sidewalks. However, if we could up the limit of the cost share, that would encourage more people to do it. And at the same time, when we send the notification that we're asking that they fix the sidewalk, also send the link to the program. That helps and could pay approximately 50% or some other number.
Yeah,
I
that's
really,
good.
I like
Yeah,
what you're
I like-
saying.
yeah.
I like this suggestion, and I would like to show you York Street. How much she had to improve
That's
for trees she didn't want.
Particular example that the mayor is referring to, I mean, there are sections of that sidewalk close to the creek that are up 6 or 8 or 10 inches. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
And it's a definite safety problem. I'm surprised that the homeowners wouldn't worry about liability for tripping hazards.
I took notes on it. I will be following up.
Thank
Oh,
you,
and
Mike.
don't talk to the owner. She's pretty annoyed with us on York. Just walk around.
So
I really appreciate your creativity. Thank you so much, Mr. Berger.
I would like to open to public right now. Any comments for this item 6.4? Any public comments from Zoom? No. All right. So yes, please. Yeah.
I think this is Ron Wellender, 1149 Neal Court. I think this is germane, but there's a situation on 3rd Street East where a homeowner put in rather significant improvements, I think both interior as well as exterior. And before they can get the final, the intent was, or the direction was, that they were going to have to go ahead and put in curb gutter and sidewalks. And on that particular block, it's kind of interesting because it's an older section of town, and right now the corner house has no sidewalk. If they put it in, they would have a segment from property line to property line of new sidewalk and curb, and then the subsequent next 4 houses have no sidewalk. And as was explained to me, was the intent, of course, is to keep safety and to keep pedestrians onto a sidewalk. But in this particular case, it would be kind of a movement of direction where you're on the street, then you have a curb cut, you come up on the sidewalk, you go down one parcel length, you come back down on the street, and you continue on the street. And it seems a little bit, I understand the logic, but it seems a little bit odd to have this one parcel put in a sidewalk when in reality we really haven't improved the safety. So I don't know what the mechanism could be, but what I would be interested in at least having someone explore is the idea of making that homeowner fiscally responsible a portion of, I don't know if it's a bond or what it would be, but it seems like when the adjacent two parcels in the future come up, then ultimately when you do something like that, a street improvement, it would at least net you something that truly has gotten people off the street onto a sidewalk rather than having what will be just kind of a patchwork quilt, and that's it.
And probably less
Well,
expensive
and
to
the-
do it all at once.
And the good news is, we have to do it all at once. If they pave Fifth Street East, every gully, every whatever you see is gonna be put sidewalks, ADA, all of it. So that's really correct what you're saying.
There's a provision in 12.14 that allows for improvement agreements with the homeowners, so that you essentially can require that they put the improvements in, but you can delay when that happens to when
Yeah,
the other folks are putting in theirs. for
because
example.
as Mr. Wallander said, it's silly, if you we put our sidewalk in, nobody else has a sidewalk, so they're still walking in that little gully about on Fifth Street East. And, so we have to do it, all at once. So I'm worried about those trucks coming in to repave.
Yeah, and just to further elaborate, those are called deferred improvement agreements. We accept those and we file them. And that's a good thing, but I feel that if it makes sense to do it now, let's get it done.
You be quiet, please, Mr. Berger.
And
We don't know, need any
I'm not
improvements.
referring to Fifth Street, but I'm just referring to areas that make sense.
No, I agree.
And on a case-by-case basis, looking at those, and if a deferred improvement agreement makes sense, like on Third Street East, I'm all in favor, like on Fifth Street East.
Well, and I agree with you 100%. The thing is, the draconian part of this is our project would not be finalized until we agreed to do that. We were held captive by the city of Sonoma. All right,
I think you have to recuse yourself from voting on that.
All right. And right now, still is the public comment. Who else want to? Yeah, please.
Robert Demler, First Street West. I was waiting for 6.5, but now we're talking about sidewalks, and I cannot resist. I'm here to represent the Sonoma League for Historic Preservation, and I'd like to say publicly that I think we have an agreement and a commitment from the Public Works to replace our sidewalk on First Street East, 291 First Street East, because it is 8 to 10 inches in height because of a root. And I've talked with Chris Pegg, and he has plans to do around the tree and replace the entire sidewalk. And there's a little space between the sidewalk and the street, which is not filled in, and it's very dangerous. And we're concerned about it, and the property owner is the city. So I would hope you all, I'm told that it might take place in January, that you all are going to discuss this in October. You all, Public Works is going to discuss it in October. But I do want to make this public statement that we're counting on that. And I guess I really need to go to the safety committee, because that block is at our end is extremely dark. And we have people come for events, and the city is responsible. We have some insurance, but we would immediately push to the city to take care of any liability. And many of our members are as old as I, and I worry about them navigating that dark sidewalk with the hole on the side and the raised portion from the root. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So that's the backlash I'm talking about, Mr. Berger? Sorry? No, I
No.
said that's the backlash
Backlash.
that we're talking about here.
All right. Let me close public comment, and we come back to council and put the motion.
Well,
Do we need it?
I think it's a great idea, and
Yeah.
I think it's creative, and I think ultimately the most it would be is $60K a fiscal year, and so I think that's reasonable. And let's just see how it works. I mean, we're just
Do we need an added inflation rate adjustment or?
I think that's in there.
Okay. All right, that is a motion? All
I'll
right.
second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Barnett.
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte.
Aye.
Councilmember Felder.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe.
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Let's move to agenda number 6.5. Discussion, consideration, and a possible action regarding the beginning of the process to develop the Sonoma Plaza Depot Park downtown master plan. Entering the city manager, Sue Casey, please.
Mayor Ding and City Council members, so at the August 17th City Council meeting, and then tonight, again, the council discussed the concept of a Plaza Depot Park Downtown Master Plan. So Sonoma Plaza is a National Historic Monument and landmark, and at 8 acres is the largest public plaza park in California. And the plaza is in particular the heart of Sonoma, and it drives a lot of the local economy. The plaza was laid out by General Vallejo in 1835, and Sonoma City Hall in the center of the plaza was dedicated in 1908. The Sonoma Valley Women's Club Beautification Project was instrumental in establishing the plaza in its present design. A Plaza Depot Park Downtown Master Plan would help the city steward this historic treasure and landmark. So the goal of this agenda item tonight is discuss and possibly provide direction on the need for a Plaza Master Plan, what elements a proposed master plan would contain, direction on next steps, possibly form an ad hoc committee or a citizen-led task force, then an RFP process, and then potential funding sources. So it's not really yet known what a Sonoma Plaza Depot Park Downtown Master Plan would cost, but it's expected that it would be significant. Funding for the master plan could include the fiscal year 22-23 general fund surplus, which is resulting from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, income that has not yet been programmed for fiscal year 22-23. And Vice Mayor Barnett has a short presentation for this item.
Thank you, Sue, and thank you for letting me just sort of put this together real quick. I know it's getting late, so I'll go through this fairly quickly. I put this presentation together just to get us all excited to think about this and sort of kick this off with the idea that, as Sue just said, we will provide some direction on how we want this process to play out. Just sort of talk about it, you know, maybe what we want to include, maybe we don't want to include, and, you know, investigate like the RFP process, see exactly how much this would cost, and I assume at some point this will come back, perhaps to us or perhaps to the new council. So we have 2 people running for our next council here tonight, and so I just wanted to use this opportunity to get excited and get on the same page and sort of look to the future of the Sonoma Plaza. So, oh, is this? I got this. All right. All right. So as Sue just described, you know, the Sonoma Plaza is the heart and soul of Sonoma. We all know it's the largest public plaza in California, site of the Bear Flag Revolt, the birth of California. As we discussed earlier during the parklets, it's a National Historic Monument and landmark. As Madeline is well aware, this was beautified about, you know, 110 years ago by the Sonoma Valley Women's Club, and as we all know, it is the economic engine and catalyst for the city of Sonoma. And as I think we also all know, it's the one place in town that appeals to everyone. I mean, everyone has a sort of strong feeling, especially if you're from here. We're very proud of our plaza, and our visitors are often charmed by it. It's what brings people to Sonoma and the surrounding area. So the current state of our plaza, it's been used heavily, especially during, you know, in post-pandemic. And in my view, and again, some of these are my ideas, so I am not speaking for the city. I am speaking just for myself, but I just want to throw out some ideas and questions to see what people think. In my view, there's a significant need for restoration and improvement in our plaza. I think some of the landscaping elements and grass needs to be improved. We've discussed the refuse receptacles last week, or at the last meeting, benches, picnic tables. We constantly hear from the public about the state of the bathrooms in the plaza. We're constantly asked about increasing bike parking. A lot of people in town think the Grinstead Amphitheater has a lot more potential. signage. And in my view, and the view of many, a Sonoma Plaza master plan will guide the revitalization of the plaza, and that will have spillover effect to the surrounding commercial district. And in an effort to enhance and improve this landmark, as well as provide sustainable operational, maintenance, and funding structures to ensure continued vitality and use for future generations. And I think that's something we should all, it's a goal we should all share. So, just a little bit of history. 50 years ago this year, the first Plaza Master Plan was launched. It was approved 4-1 in April 1972, and former Mayor Nancy Parmalee was part of the majority that supported it. And back then, they called for a master plan, and it was really about the construction of drinking fountains and the furniture, the park benches. They redid the walkways and the landscape. And so while the Women's Club about over 100 years ago laid out the plaza in terms of the sidewalks and the general layout, the benches and the tables and a lot of what we know the plaza as today was installed about 50 years ago in 1972. And the council also at the time set up a steering committee of citizens to assist the city in carrying out this program. I also thought it was interesting on the front page of the Index Tribune in April 1972, they were talking about a plaza master plan and Sonoma State Hospital, which we all know is SDC, and that was also on our agenda today.
That's great.
Recent past, obviously this isn't a brand new idea. I mean, we've always talked about how we best improve our plaza. In the last few years, last 4 to 5 years, there have been different discussions about how we go about this in terms of our capital improvement project. Back in 2018, during the 2018-19 fiscal year budget, there was a Plaza and Depot Park enhancement and connectivity project. We also last week, but this started back then, we talked about replacing all the refuse receptacles, and that's also included expanding bike parking. We also had a Depot Park enhancement project, which included like the bathroom improvements and other improvements at Depot Park. During our council goals for 2021-2022, this was part of it, a plaza master plan, and just recently in August at our agenda setting priority meeting, we discussed this as well. And so this has sort of been in the works for a while, and in my view, when we talk about an enhancement and connectivity project, or we talk about the garbage cans or the bike parking or the Depot Park enhancement projects, I think the best way to go about this would be to just do this in one large master plan, and ultimately that master plan would talk about all these different individual improvements within, guarantee funding for it, and sort of give a timeline. When, year 1 this will happen, year 2 this will happen, year 5 this will happen. This will take some time, but in my view, what we've done in the past is we do piecemeal improvements based on what we need at the time, whether it's new garbage cans or new bike parking, and ultimately sometimes that doesn't all match, and I believe there are some aesthetic issues with that. And so if we can do this in a cohesive and holistic manner, I think that would benefit not just our plaza, but the surrounding commercial district and ultimately our town. So when we talk about a master plan, what do we want to include? So I sort of looked at it as improve, enhance, and then just beyond the plaza. So as we've discussed, we need to still improve the bathrooms and the trash cans and landscaping. We have to improve infrastructure. From what I understand, there were some events sometimes people want to do in the plaza, but I don't know if we've improved the electric in the plaza. That's been discussed at some point. And again, I'm just sort of spitballing here, so I'm not city staff. Playgrounds, water, fountain elements, signage, hardscape, pavers. I mean, there's been discussion. Sometimes the sidewalks don't match. Maybe we look at that. Enhance, we've also talked about a cultural and public art plan in Sonoma. I think that should be part of it. Obviously, we always talk about increasing the bike parking. There are parks that I've been to before that have nicely done dog elements of a park. Now, maybe that's a good idea, maybe that's a bad idea. That's sort of a issue that the future council can discuss. But what I envision, and I'm not even saying I think it's a good idea, but I have seen them where they have nice little fencing around it, and it would just be a small little area, or maybe, but this is going to be part of the whole process. The community will be engaged, and maybe they'll like that idea, maybe they won't. And additional landscaping, additional gardens, maybe different sort of interpretations of gardens. We could have a little cafe in the plaza. Maybe that's a horrible idea. Maybe the town would hate it. Maybe this will never get to the master plan, but it's a possibility. We could add monuments. We could subtract monuments. We could focus on aesthetics. We could talk about the function of City Hall. Back in the 1970s, they discussed moving City Hall and all the offices associated with it to this building here. And we could add another level here and then open up our City Hall. City Hall is my favorite building in Sonoma, and very few people get to go inside. You know, you could have a performance space within City Hall. You could have a museum space within City Hall. It could be, you know, rented for special events, etc. It could be a real showcase for our city. And clearly that is not going to happen overnight, but it's something to sort of work toward and something that could be part of a plaza master plan. And beyond the plaza, you know, park specifically, this master plan could include, as we discussed earlier tonight, expanded sidewalks around the plaza to allow for expanded al fresco dining. You know, could also include the parking management plan we've been talking about, and the downtown parking, Casa Grande parking, circulation. The circulation element is going to be important. Even just during this meeting, we got an email from a member of the public talking about, you know, if our goal is expanded al fresco dining and really being European, maybe closing parts of the roads or reducing the size of the traffic, and really having more connectivity between the commercial district on the exterior of the plaza and the park itself. Depot Park, obviously, it's only, I think, and it's obviously just a block north of the plaza. I think it's only 800 feet north. I mean, should that be part of this entire master plan and the connectivity within, and you know, integrate all the different state park properties within the Mesa Navi House? I mean, we have a lot of great city assets right downtown that I think could conceivably be part of a master plan. All right, so then part of the master plan could also look at operation and management and you know, funding this whole thing, which would obviously be fairly expensive. And so this is my idea, and this would obviously be discussed as part of this process. Maybe it'll be rejected, maybe it won't, but a lot of great urban parks around the country, and I think Sonoma is worthy of just thinking about this as a conservancy model. Obviously, in the past, urban parks were once firmly, as the slide says, considered the responsibility solely of taxpayers in the city, but now growing numbers of cities are utilizing private donations to rebuild, refurbish, and even maintain these beautiful, iconic parks. And I'm not just talking any park. This is, as I said, a landmark. It's the Sonoma Plaza. So conservancy can stoke some hope and it can stoke some fear. You know, many people have seen conservancies better improve the success of parks while holding down taxpayer expense. But we have to obviously be careful not to allow a narrow group of residents to assume control of our public parks without political accountability or understanding the broad needs of the community. As the slide says, I generally never liked it when people just read a slide during a presentation, but that's exactly what I'm doing right now. But you know, as the slide says, these are nonprofit park benefit organizations. They have their own board that I assume the city would somehow control or be involved with, that could ultimately perhaps even run the park. I think we have a great public works department. They do great work, but as we all know, and we look at our budget, I actually think our public works staff and our city staff and the city council, we steward and do a great job with our current resources with the park. But maybe we need to rethink how we do things, because in my view, I think I know the city could do it better, but that would mean taking funds away from also other significant programs and plans the city wants to do. So we should start sort of thinking out the box and seeing if there are better models out there. But for example, a conservancy could program the park. They could run the farmers market. They could be in charge of all the refuse and the bathroom cleaning. They could hire an arborist. We could have a whole botanical study. They could be in charge of all the public art. All that could be run by a conservancy. They could program the future city hall. And you see these around the country. These are Lafayette Squares in New Orleans. Madison Square Park is in New York City. Obviously, these are bigger cities. But in my view, the plaza rivals any of these cities in terms of potential, or any of these larger city public parks in terms of potential. You know, other sources of funding, I say here, again, this will all be sort of discussed and fleshed out during a master plan process, but obviously there are a lot of grants considering the historic landmark. The tourist improvement district could be part of this. That comes up for 2020 in 2025. If we do a parking management downtown and there's potential revenue from that, that could also help fund any sort of associated expenses, not just with the Park Plaza master plan, but actually running a park for the future. And in my view, I think this would have great economic effects for the city of Sonoma and, its future potential. The path forward, obviously, any potential master plan would have robust community engagement. Our town deeply cares about this plaza. Could it be an ad hoc council committee? Could be a citizen steering committee like the 1972 council selected. Obviously, any process would have scoping sections, a specialty consultant firm with expertise in public parks and landscape architecture and historic preservation. A team would be involved in this whole process, including hopefully or primarily composed of local professionals and experts. All of this would be brought forward before committees, the ad hoc council committee or the citizens committee, and ultimately approved by probably design review and planning or the city council. And obviously stakeholders would have to be part of every step of the way here, whether it's just the council and staff, but state parks, chamber of commerce, visitors bureau, businesses, and community groups. I just put together a little vision board. I mean, this would be part of the whole process, but when we start thinking about what we want the plaza to look like, do we want it to look like it is? Do we want to enhance it? Do we want to look at other bench models? This is the dog park, by the way, I was just describing on the right with that little sort of fenced off area. Different, nicer looking, in my view, refuse receptacles, flower pots hanging off street lamps, bike parking that sort of is historically appropriate and not just sort of suburban, tables and chairs that can be sort of folded and put out and, on decomposed granite. I mean, rethink maybe we could have a flexible model that way, really add to that al fresco dining. Do we want to put little fences around areas of the grass, not to keep people out, but just to sort of maintain a better landscape? Again, this would all be part of the process. Some of these ideas maybe are good, some of them maybe are horrible, but the community would be part of putting that all together. And so ultimately I would like to get going on this because it is 2023, and knowing how long things take around here, I would love to get it done by 2035, which would be the bicentennial of, as Robert Demore well knows, this is when General Vallejo laid out our plaza in 1835.
There's the women over here putting.
That's right, the Women's Club.
Your woman club is a member.
And obviously the picture on the left shows the plaza in the early 1900s, and obviously it has a giant
horse trough.
horse trough and drinking fountain, and so it just shows the plaza has changed over time. And so maybe as we reimagine the plaza for our third century and our bicentennial in 2035, we'll think about what we want to keep, what we want to change. Maybe we don't want to change anything. Maybe we just want to enhance. And so that was just sort of like my thought to kick things off and I wanted to see what the public thought and what the rest of the council thought. And I think this is, in my view, one it should always be a priority, not just for this council, but the next council and the council after that and the council after that. In my view, oftentimes things get lost between shifting staff and council members. And if we can create a master plan that future councils and staff, whoever they are, can execute, I think that will ultimately deliver what we want for our town and will provide great benefits for our residents and our visitors. So
I think this is wonderful. I really appreciate it. It's interesting. The Women's Club in the beginning started they called themselves a sanitation committee.
Sanitation.
Because of the cows and the mess that was on the plaza.
People used it as like a
Right, and it was an awful place, and so they started out as sanitation. And I would hope that, part of the master plan includes the amazing work that the Women's Club did, all those years ago by putting in lawns, trees, the 2 fountains. They took down this horse trough and put in the fountain in front of City Hall, as well as the duck pond, and where the Visitors Bureau is right now. That was a Carnegie Award. So I think this is wonderful, but I would hope that somebody would provide homage, I guess the word is, to the Women's Club because.
That's a great idea. We could
Because
put
I
it-
think
yes.
that they've been a big part of this, and it's our fault for not pushing that a little bit better. So, I think it's great. I love it. Only thing I ask is, we just want a statue at the fountain with a woman with a cup of tea. That's how this all started, at a tea party with the Women's Club.
Well, that'll be part of the process,
Yep.
discussing that.
I'll get somebody working on. I was told to get a woman to do that artwork.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor.
It's great.
On that, it's a great idea, and also, I believe this is your last touch for our our council. That is wonderful. Yeah, it's the carry over our Sonoma's legacy. That is I very much appreciate. And
I'd be happy to serve on a citizens committee.
yeah, that's
All
great.
right.
Yeah, that is great. And overall, I perfectly agree.
As long as you get the application right, I'll apply. Yeah.
If I would like to say something, perfect, we maintain the best part of our Sonoma for the grand and the master plan. Another thing is we may consider generate a new item, new attractions, new spirit. For example, Chinese, the pavilions in Depot Park, which was approved already. Actually, already got the, construction permit 2 years ago. Right now it's just on a cross street of the Depot Park Museum, and that is used to be a pavilion over there. However, they face the difficulties. They raised the money already more than $100,000. Already reached the target at the beginning. But after the pandemic, after Wi-Fi, and the cost for this construction greatly high. So right now they have the gap. So I don't know how they may change the program, and also they are working with the grant writers and try to find the money to fulfill still needed to, because this project was approved 4 years ago. It's tough. I hope that out in the city and could the support even in the grant writing under the economic development administration, these kind of fund if possible, because initially this project should have been done by the nonprofit, but right now the nonprofit has problems. But this project city got approved. We should do our best to the support and see what's going on. Hopefully, because it's really meaningful project. And one day I talked with the Visitor Bureau, the team. Also, he mentioned that we need to have something new, for our, city and attract the marketing is about. Yeah, that is my, suggestion. Yeah, thank you.
Do we want to open it up to the?
Oh yes, yeah. Somebody, send your.
Well, let's do public comment.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me then open to the public comment.
Yes. Robert Demler, First Street West, thank you. This is outstanding. I can't tell you how pleased and impressed I am with this. I would beg you to highlight bullet point 3, which is citizens' involvement. And I would also beg you to involve I use the word stakeholder. I know that's an au courant term, but the people who are most interested, and that's the Sonoma Valley Historical Society, bless their souls, and the Sonoma League. I would also add, by the way, the Sonoma League's first mission statement was beautification of the plaza. That was after the sanitation by the Women's Club. Ours was 69, yours was much earlier, yeah. I would also like you to consider such groups as sister cities, because they have this interest in the team, and I hope that is going to go forward soon. We may make some adjustments to the plan, but we're going forward. And such groups as the Rotary Club, who is my Rotary Club, the Sunrise Club, is very interested in the Aguillon Cottage, which is behind the Masonovi House, the derelict building. They would love to take that on, and they need some cooperation from the city. And I know the city has been, sorry to use this word, in turmoil with all of the changes, and I congratulate and give my sympathies to the people who've tried to keep things going and who have kept things going. I know it's an unbelievably difficult process to do that. But there's a wide expanse of stakeholders. So I would encourage that very much. A few comments. I'd like to see more signage to point to the Vallejo statue, which I was involved with, to the Masonovi House, to the bocce courts. I want a grand walkway alongside the Aguillon Cottage, between them and the bocce courts. Wide paving stones, shrubs, flowers, whatever, to connect. It's all good. And please, I hope for this Christmas we have lights on the palm tree on the north side. God, most of our monuments are on the north side, and it's the dark side in Christmas. Anyway, there's only one thing wrong with this. I think the goal of 2035 is great. That is the bicentennial of the plaza and the Pueblo of Sonoma. The only thing wrong with it is, thank you for not being mayor, Madeline, sorry. The only thing wrong, I'll be 94, but I'm going to be here to see that this is accomplished. And the other thing that's sad is this work was done tonight by someone who I'm sad that is not running for city council. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You didn't give me a very hard time. Another public comment? Yeah.
Norma Fogelberg on Las Casitas. I want to say thank you. I know what it takes, the kind of passion it takes to put this together, and I'm all for it. So I have a couple of little ads that I want to drop in. If you walk around the square, what you typically see most of are people holding their iPhones and looking at things. I'd love for us to put technology into this. I think we need an app that actually people can use with signage on all four quarters of the square, and they can get a video tour. They can hear about the proposed master plan. They can be encouraged to come and volunteer or to be a part of it. But I'd really like to see how we can bring technology in so that people are walking away with a deeper understanding of the points that you made, the historical points that you made, because there isn't really one place. And I think the voice should be the voice of Sonoma, talking about Sonoma, not necessarily relying on people to give tours, but telling people what we want them to know and what we want to do and getting them to enroll. So there's a couple of little messages, very different messages. But I just wanted to say thank you. And I'm going to add my own personal passion to this. I work to eliminate plastic-based products that are made by fossil fuel. I would love to see a campaign about working towards a plastic-free Sonoma wrapped into this some way so that we really pay attention to the materials that we use. So that's my own little personal plug. Thank you, and thank you again for doing this work. All of you doing all the work you're doing. It's appreciated.
We have this climate committee, and there's an application online. It's just want to make sure that you pay attention to it, because we're trying to do something about exactly what you said. Yeah.
Thank you. Ron Wellander, 1149 Neil Court. This has got me totally excited from a variety of fronts. One as a citizen of Sonoma, one as a landscape architect, and I think this is very exciting. And I was just thinking about scribbling some notes as Councilman Barnett was sharing, and I think it would be great to have a comprehensive program to really capture a lot of input from the community, from an ad hoc, what have you, because that's the very beginning point that really is a good guidance for that next step. And that next step could be what it would be called an RFQ, which is just simply request for qualifications, where you could solicit out, and we do live in a very rich state for a lot of design talent. San Francisco, going south. And the nice thing about design solicitations is we don't have to limit it to city limits or whatever. We can really seek out the best of the best. The next step, say for instance, if you sent out an RFQ, then you could kind of go through that and then distill down a number of qualified firms that could possibly participate. And I think it would be then at that point submit a request for proposals. But in that proposal, I think there would be some value in being able to create a little bit of a competition where you're asking for, say, a small group, maybe 10 firms, to do a conceptual idea, not too far, because what you're doing is you're asking them to do something for free, and you know there's only going to be possibly one winner. But from that, you could then maybe from that selection be able to call down to the top 3. And then at that point, you could encourage those 3 people to take it a little bit further, give them a stipend so they have a little bit of motivation to take it even further and not feel like they're being totally abused. And then, of course, from that select, this, I can't tell you, I'm very excited about what I see the potential is and what it could really do for the city. I think it would be critical at some point to, in that design phase, to identify some sort of estimate of probable cost, because that's really going to come into play. This is going to be a very expensive project, but hopefully we can define a phasing, a sequence, and be able to do it. I think we need to really respect the history. I am absolutely unequivocally jealous of the Women's Club for having done such a grand job of laying out a public space that could have been done by simply, what's his name, Frederick Law Olmsted, something like the parks around the country. So in that sense, I take my hat off. Some of the comments that Norma just made were great as far as the technology. I think the other key element that I want to really stress, and I have 8 seconds, 9 seconds, I'm over, is that it's going to be important, though, to come up with a roadmap on how to protect what we just invested. And that means, how do we maintain it? How do we do it in the long term? Because it's going to be critical that we not only get a wonderful project, but that we're going to be able to appreciate for many subsequent years. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice. Yeah. Yes.
I'll make my comment.
Councilmember Lee.
So I'm going to make the comments that I always make about these sort of things, and that is that the west side of Sonoma.
On the east. Bring it on over.
The west side of Sonoma is a park desert, as described during the budget meetings that we had. And there's a piece of property that is zoned for a park on MacArthur and 5th Street West that the people who live across, which is the mobile home parks, have been wanting for a dog park because most of them do not drive anymore, and they're would love to have some place they could have their dogs off leash. And so I mention it every time because I think we can walk and chew gum. I believe that we can do both, but I don't want the people who have been waiting for something to be developed in their neighborhood to feel like we've forgotten about them when we do this. I'm just putting a pin in that. I think this is incredible work, Vice Mayor Barnett. You should be very proud of this. It's very well done. And the other thing, as far as the committees and so forth, is that we've been referring, in fact, all night to this as a national monument, and that we should really not be city specific in terms of our committees. This is one committee that I think anyone who lives in the greater Sonoma Valley should be a part of. Because when we do our events in the plaza, we know that not everyone is in the city limits. The city limits it's too small, actually. Our city limits are too small. So I don't want anyone to be discouraged from being part of this effort, because I think it's going to take everybody, and I want everyone in the entire sphere of influence, if you will, to feel a part of this project. I don't want people to feel like in Boys Hot Springs it's not for them or whatever. I mean, I just want everyone to feel like this is for them. And then, of course, we have to address this parkland issue and what we're going to do about it. I mean, perhaps there's something in here that will have some benefit long term, but I think that we sort of predicated this discussion on the elimination of another project, and somehow we have to see if there really is a nexus there, because there may be and there may not be. There may be some other plan that we have to do in the meantime, and I don't want to lose that. But I'm very excited about this. I don't think it should be like an ad hoc. I mean, it's just too big a deal. I mean, I think we need, and I think every council member, it should be a Brown Act meeting, and we can all go and, be part of it, because I think it's going to take everybody's input. And I heard great things tonight. I love the technology piece. I think that's fantastic. So thank you again for putting in the effort. I know this is a labor of love for you, and it shows. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah.
I think it's been said.
Okay.
Great job.
Great job.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you again. I agree completely with what Councilwoman Lowe just said about our other parks in the west side, obviously. And I think one of the reasons why during this whole process we should be open to a conservancy model or rethinking the plaza is because I think it will free up city resources to better focus on our neighborhood parks. And I think the reality is, with our budget and our, we do the best we can, but if we had more resources, because they weren't going to the plaza, to take care of our neighborhood parks, we would not only have more parks, but better maintained parks throughout the city. And so, again, throughout this process, I think that should definitely be considered. Then I liked the idea that Ron Wellender talked about a competition. I mean, I do think the Sonoma Plaza, I mean, I know we're all biased here, but I think it's one of the best public spaces in the country, and I wouldn't be surprised if, design schools or people around the country wanted to really get involved, and perhaps we could set up a competition and get great ideas from that would inform a more serious master plan process with the steering committee. So I think these were great ideas, and I think as this process unfolds, I think we'll have more and more community input and involvement and continue to hear good ideas.
And I think all of our committees, we've got a Parks Committee and a Climate Committee. I mean, all of, there probably should be a member from each of those, because they'll probably have something to do. I agree with the conservancy idea. I think you're right. I mean, this is where the money is. People are going to be attracted to put their money. I'm not going to be able to raise a whole lot of money on my West Side Dog Park. I get it, but I'd like, so I appreciate what you have to say, and I think that's correct.
It's wonderful.
I just also want to, echo, the plaza is Sonoma Valley's park, and so any steering committee should involve everybody. This shouldn't be a city-specific, and however we structure that, it is, I mean, whether you live in Glen Ellen or Shelbyville, like, this is your park, and we have to figure that out.
This is a community park, people park. All right, any more comments, or we have the very clear direction again?
Well, so what kind of direction do we want to give staff in terms of next steps?
Next step, I think, basically, the master, the plan, is wonderful, and also we just then talked about technology part and the new items and attracted more, the items into this project. And also the city request the community participate out in the city, to rebuild up and to the Vista Park. Education also is very important.
Well, I would suggest, directing staff to come back, and I mean, hopefully soon, but if it's not with this council, with the next council, to, begin to form a steering committee or talk about the composition of that, what the process would be in a steering committee, and then also discuss, maybe some initial figures on what a potential RFP with this proposed potential scope of work would cost, or not just the RFP, but what just get some initial.
Yeah, and I think a timeline maybe
timeline
would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Like at this time we're going to form the committee, at this time we're going to go out for RFP, just to kind of keep everything moving.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And
I'm wondering if we needed to contact any consulting, the company, let them to give us some
I think that'll be part.
National level, or what is our goal. In this way, maybe we have the broader vision and far vision. Will not cost too much, and sometimes I always, the concern that the value of the Sonoma. When the people mention about an Napa, looks like, sounds like an Napa is, actually not.
Well, one of the
That
things
is
I'd
the-
like to remind everybody is the big bite we have now is the cemetery.
Right.
That's the big bite, and that's something that's relevant right now. I love this. As you know, I've outlived my familial warranty. I will not be around to see this. So
No. Hopefully you will.
No.
2035 is just a goal. Hopefully we'll do it much quicker
Well,
than
I'm
that.
just saying,
Yeah.
I won't see this, but I think it's wonderful because it's just a wonderful thing. I really appreciate your talent being used on this, but I do want to remind everybody our big bite right now is the cemetery.
And I agree 1,000%, as you know.
I know,
and,
'cause we've-
and similar to what Councilwoman Lowe said, again, freeing up some funds will be able, and I believe we have the cemetery at some point. We've already started that consulting report, and hopefully they'll come back soon, and we'll be able to launch the future of the cemetery hopefully soon as well. So, all exciting stuff.
And I really like when Mr. Demler said about the sort of the extension of that into Depot Park, because there always seems to be this sort of dividing line. I mean, honestly, for my family and my friends, if we're going to put a picnic together, we're at Depot Park. That's where we go, right? Because that's sort of a family area, and you're sort of sort of away. But it always feels like there's this kind of dividing line. So I love the idea of sort of making it one big thing. Yeah, I like that.
And I'd love a copy of this.
Yes, yeah,
Send it to all of us.
yeah, it's beautiful. Again, I'd appreciate it. That is so-called a masterpiece. Yeah, we are lucky to have the council and show us the future picture. Yeah, let's work for that. So as to the detail and direction, I believe all mentioned, and then later on maybe we can review all comments, or if anybody want to emphasize, itemize, also it's good. And then the couple of the month later, or we have the time we can send it back and look at it, or maybe we can put on the website and see any inputs from the public, and that is the future Sonoma.
Well, do you have enough direction on sort of next steps?
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I think the timeline's gonna be important.
Yeah.
And then, I did like, Ron Wellinger's idea about an RFQ instead of an RFP, because that, that would
Okay,
sort of
yeah.
broaden the scope first, because an RFP, you have to really know what you want.
Okay, yeah.
Right, and then maybe, finding as you said, a consulting company that might be able to assist us. And then if we did get, across the nation, I mean, there are parts like this, and there might be people who would wanna, contribute, as you said, so.
So just a bit of advice, don't invite anyone from the Highway 37 project, because you know how long that's been taking, so don't ask them to help.
There's a plan. There's a plan.
Yeah, I know, I was there 7 years ago, and the plan was, but thank you.
All right, yeah, let me move to next agenda item. Agenda number 7, council members' report and the comments. If any in the report?
I wanted to just remind everyone, I dedicated this council meeting tonight to Norman Bosshard, who was the owner of Off-Broadway Cleaners.
That's great.
And I'd like to say that you all missed me being a complete fool of myself at the Sebastiani Theater.
I heard you were great though.
I
It's been going
totally,
around.
I killed it.
Yeah.
I have to say, but anyway, I was happy to be there as kind of making fun. But it was a great event, and the city was very involved in it, and the people really acknowledged the fact that it was the city that gave Roger the green light to go ahead and create that place. So that was a lot of fun. I also did the Sonoma County Transportation Authority meeting and talked about Highway 37. It wasn't quite as amusing. So that's my report.
That's great. Anyone? I don't have any report. Okay. All right, let's move to agenda number 8, city manager comments and announcements.
Hi, just one announcement. We had 3 new people starting this week. We'll be bringing them to the next
wonderful.
council meeting. Our development services supervisor, her first name is Jade, and I can't remember her last. Felipe. And then we had 2 maintenance workers who started this week too. So we'll be bringing them to council to introduce. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Sue. Agenda number 9, city attorney comments.
Well, since it's after 9 and you haven't voted to hear
Oh,
any items,
thank you.
I have
Thank you for your professional advice. All right. So the agenda number 10, the meeting is adjourned. Good night.
Executive director